Good day, lovely viewers. Welcome to Harry FLAX. We have an exciting story lined up for you today. What if Bellatrix fell obsessively in love with 7-year-old Harry and broke out of Azkaban just to protect him from Dumbledore? Your engagement means the world to us. Like, comment, and subscribe to help us grow and bring you more amazing content. Without wasting any time, let's start. Chapter 1, The Breaking the water was so cold it felt like knives. Bellatrix Lestrange dragged herself through the black waves, her skeletal arms barely functioning, her lungs screaming for air she couldn't afford to take. Behind her, Azkaban's fortress disappeared into the fog, and the Dementor's shrieks tore across the water like dying things. They were coming. They were always coming. But she was faster now. She had something they couldn't take from her anymore. The boy. Must reach the boy. He needs me. He needs me. Another wave crashed over her head, and she went under, salt water flooding her throat. For a moment, she considered letting go. Just, sinking. Ending this wretched existence in the cold dark. Then she saw him again. The vision that had burned itself into her brain 3 weeks ago when the Dementors fed too deep, ripped through her memories of the Dark Lord, and accidentally showed her something they never meant to share. A small boy with black hair and green eyes, locked in a cupboard under the stairs. Bruises on his arms. Ribs visible through his skin. Crying in the dark with no one to hear him. Harry Potter. The boy who lived. The child who destroyed her master. And he was suffering. Bellatrix's legs kicked. Her arms pulled. She broke the surface with a gasp and kept swimming. She didn't understand why she felt this way. 3 weeks ago, she would have killed Potter herself, gleefully, as a gift to the Dark Lord. 3 weeks ago, she was still devoted to him, still waiting for his return, still faithful. But the Dementors had taken too much. They'd fed on her devotion like it was candy, stripped away her love for the Dark Lord piece by piece until nothing remained but a hollow ache. And into that void, something else had rushed. Something ancient. Something hungry. Something that looked at Harry Potter and screamed mine. The shore materialized through the fog. Scotland. Mainland. Freedom. Bellatrix crawled onto the rocks, her prison robes torn to shreds, her body broken in a dozen ways. She lay there gasping, staring at the gray sky, laughing and crying at the same time. "I'm coming, little prince," she whispered to no one. "I'm coming." 3 days later, Bellatrix stood in front of a cracked mirror in an abandoned cottage, trying to remember what she used to look like. The woman staring back at her was a nightmare. Hollow cheeks, sunken eyes, wild hair matted with salt and dirt. Her famous beauty had been eaten by Azkaban, year after year, until only this husk remained. But her magic was intact. That was something. She raised her wand, stolen from a drunk wizard in a pub 2 nights ago, and began the slow process of healing herself. Broken ribs first, because breathing was important. Then the infected cuts on her feet from the rocks. Then the malnutrition, though that would take weeks of proper food to truly fix. As she worked, fragments of memory drifted through her mind. Not her own memories. His. The cupboard. Always the cupboard. Get in there, boy. No freaks at the dinner table. A fat man with a purple face, shoving a tiny child into darkness. You're worthless. Just like your worthless parents. A horse-faced woman, shrieking while the boy cowered. Dudley, hit him again. He's not crying hard enough. A pig-like child, laughing as he punched and kicked. Bellatrix's stolen wand snapped in half. She stared at the pieces in her hand, breathing hard, trying to control the fury that threatened to overwhelm her. This wasn't like her. She'd tortured people. She'd killed. She'd enjoyed it. So why did the thought of these muggles hurting this one specific child make her want to burn the world down? Because he's mine, the voice in her head whispered. He's mine, and they're hurting what's mine. She didn't question it anymore. Didn't try to analyze or understand. The Dark Lord had demanded her devotion for years, and she'd given it without thought. This new obsession felt the same, overwhelming, all-consuming, absolute. The only difference was that this time, she would be protecting instead of destroying. This time, she would be something she'd never been before. A mother. Getting a new wand required visiting someone she'd hoped never to see again. Nocturne Alley hadn't changed. Still grimy, still dangerous, still full of witches and wizards who'd sell their own mothers for the right price. Bellatrix moved through the shadows, her appearance altered by a weak glamour that wouldn't fool anyone who looked too closely. The wand shop was hidden behind a butcher's facade. She knocked 3 times, paused, knocked twice more. The door opened to reveal an ancient wizard with more scars than skin. "We're closed," he grunted. "Gregorovitch sent me." The old man's eyes narrowed. "Gregorovitch is dead." "I know. I killed him." A long pause. Then the door opened wider. "You'll be wanting something special, then." "Black. Lestrange now. Though not for much longer." She had plans for Rodolphius. None of them involved remaining married. "I need something powerful. Something that won't be tracked by the ministry." "That'll cost." Bellatrix smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "I have black family gold. Enough to buy your entire shop." "Then come in, come in. Let's see what calls to you." An hour later, Bellatrix walked out with a new wand, walnut and dragon heartstring, 12 inches, surprisingly swishy. It felt wrong in her hand compared to her original wand, which was probably still locked in some ministry vault, but it would do. Now she needed information. Finding Narcissa was easier than expected. Her sister hadn't moved, hadn't changed, was still living in Malfoy Manor like the perfect pure-blood wife she'd always pretended to be. Bellatrix didn't approach the manor directly, too many wards, too many eyes. Instead, she used an old trick. Blood called to blood. She cut her palm, let the drops fall onto a piece of parchment, and whispered the words her mother had taught them as girls. The parchment burned crimson, and she felt Narcissa's presence like a tug behind her ribs. "Bella." Her sister's voice, faint and terrified, echoed in her mind. "Bella, is that you?" The ministry said, "I'm out. I need your help." "You're insane. They'll catch you." I don't care. I need information." "About the Potter boy." A long silence. Then, "Why?" And Bellatrix couldn't explain it. Couldn't put into words the burning need that consumed her every waking moment. So she just said, "Because he's mine now. And someone is hurting him." More silence. When Narcissa spoke again, her voice was different. Softer. "Where are you?" They met in a Muggle park at midnight. Narcissa looked exactly as Bellatrix remembered, blonde, beautiful, untouched by war or prison or grief. She also looked terrified. "Bella," she breathed, taking in her sister's appearance. "What have they done to you?" "Nothing that matters." Bellatrix grabbed Narcissa's hands, squeezed too tight. "Tell me about the boy. Tell me everything." "I don't know everything. Dumbledore keeps his location secret, but there are rumors." "What rumors?" "He's with Muggles. His mother's family. A place called Little Whinging." Bellatrix's grip tightened until Narcissa whimpered. Why would Dumbledore put the most important child in our world with Muggles? Something about blood wards. Lily Potter's sacrifice created protections that only work if he lives with blood relatives. Blood wards. Bellatrix knew blood wards. She was a black, blood magic was in her very bones. And she knew that blood wards could be broken, given enough power and the right leverage. "What else?" she demanded. Narcissa hesitated. "There are other rumors. Darker ones. About how the boy is treated. I know how he's treated. I've seen it. That's impossible. The Dementors showed me. Bellatrix released her sister's hands, started pacing. 3 weeks ago, they fed too deep. Something happened. I saw his memories, Sissy. Saw what those animals do to him. And ever since then, I can't stop thinking about him. Can't stop seeing his face. It's like. She trailed off, frustrated by her inability to articulate. Narcissa was staring at her with an expression Bellatrix had never seen before. Wonder. And fear. But also, hope. You sound like Mother, Narcissa whispered. When she talked about us. Don't be ridiculous. I'm nothing like, you are. Exactly like her. That's exactly how she described feeling about her children. Obsessive. Protective. Ready to burn the world down if anyone touched us. Bellatrix stopped pacing. She remembered their mother, cold to everyone else, but fierce as a dragon when it came to her daughters. Druella Black had once cursed a wizard so thoroughly for hexing Andromeda that they'd had to regrow all his bones. This is different, Bellatrix said. He's not my child. Does that matter? No. No, it didn't. Because the feeling was the same regardless of logic or biology. Harry Potter was hers. She knew it the way she knew the sun would rise. And she would protect him or die trying. I need resources, she told Narcissa. Gold. Safe houses. Potions. Everything you can give me without Lucius noticing. Bella, this is madness. The entire ministry is looking for you. Dumbledore has people everywhere. If you go after the boy, then I'll fight them all. Bellatrix's voice was calm. Certain. I'll fight Dumbledore himself if I have to. That child is being abused, Sissy. Starved. Beaten. And Dumbledore knows. He put Harry there. He checks on him. He sees what happens. And he lets it continue. You can't know that. I know Dumbledore. He doesn't do anything without calculation. If the boy is suffering, it's because Dumbledore wants him to suffer. She grabbed Narcissa's shoulders. Help me. Please. For once in your life, do something that isn't safe. Narcissa closed her eyes. When she opened them, they were shining with something that might have been tears. There's a property. An old black family house, abandoned since Aunt Walburga died. It's unplottable, warded against ministry detection. Uncle Orion was paranoid about being found. Where? I'll write the address. But Bella. Narcissa's voice cracked. Be careful. If you're caught, they won't send you back to Azkaban. They'll execute you. Bellatrix smiled, and for the first time in years, it reached her eyes. Let them try. Number 4, Privet Drive, Little Whinging, Surrey. The house was painfully ordinary. Red brick, white trim, perfectly manicured lawn. A car in the driveway, curtains in the windows, a garden gnome by the front door. Everything about it screamed normal, suburban, unremarkable. Bellatrix hated it immediately. She'd been watching for 3 days now, hidden under a disillusionment charm in the bushes across the street. She'd watched the fat man, Vernon Dursley, husband to Lily Potter's sister, leave for work each morning. She'd watched the horse-faced woman, Petunia Dursley, gossip with neighbors and scrub the front step like her life depended on it. She'd watched the pig-like son, Dudley Dursley, waddle off to school and return with sweets dripping from his multiple chins. And she'd watched Harry. Her Harry. He was smaller than she'd expected. Thin and pale and fragile-looking, with messy black hair and glasses that were held together with tape. He woke before dawn to cook breakfast for the family, even though he was only 7 years old. He cleaned the house, weeded the garden, scrubbed the floors on his hands and knees. And he never ate with the family. Not once. On the first day, Bellatrix watched Petunia Dursley throw away enough leftover food to feed Harry for a week while the boy stood in the corner, stomach growling audibly. On the second day, she watched Vernon Dursley backhand Harry so hard he flew into a wall because the bacon was slightly burned. On the third day, she watched all three Dursleys leave for an outing, some kind of amusement park, based on Dudley's excited screeching, while Harry was locked in his cupboard with nothing to eat or drink. That was when Bellatrix decided she was done watching. The blood wards were impressive. She'd give Dumbledore that much. They were layered and complex and anchored to the blood of Lily Potter's line, which meant they recognized Petunia Dursley as family and anyone who meant Harry harm as an enemy. But Bellatrix didn't mean Harry harm. She walked up to the boundary of the wards, felt them press against her like a wall of invisible fire, and smiled. "I'm not here to hurt him," she said out loud, letting her magic pulse with the truth of the statement. "I'm here to protect him. I'm here to take him away from the people who are hurting him. Your precious blood protection is failing, Dumbledore. Because the blood relatives are the threat." The wards flickered. Hesitated. Lily Potter died to protect her son. She sacrificed herself so he would live. And yet you've placed him with people who make him wish he was dead. Is that what she wanted? Is that what she died for? The wards shuddered. "Let me in. Let me take him somewhere safe. Let me do what you should have done years ago." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the pressure eased. The invisible fire dimmed. And Bellatrix Lestrange walked through blood wards that had been designed to keep people like her out. Lily Potter's sacrifice, it seemed, recognized a mother when it saw one. The front door opened with a whispered Alhambra. The house was dark, quiet, the Dursleys still away on their outing. Bellatrix moved silently through the entrance hall, past the photographs on the walls, dozens of pictures of Dudley Dursley, not a single one of Harry, until she reached the cupboard under the stairs. There was a padlock on the door. A padlock. They'd locked a 7-year-old child in a cupboard under the stairs like an animal, and they'd put a padlock on the door. Bellatrix's hand trembled as she reached for her wand. The lock melted under a focused reducto, and she pulled open the door. Harry Potter looked up at her with eyes too old for his face. He was curled up on a tiny mattress that was more stains than fabric, surrounded by broken toys and spider webs. An old blanket covered his shoulders, thin and threadbare. In the dim light from the hallway, his bruises stood out like ink stains on paper. "Are you here to hurt me too?" he asked quietly. No fear in his voice. Just resignation. Just exhaustion. Something broke inside Bellatrix's chest. She crouched down, making herself as small and non-threatening as possible, a difficult task for a woman who radiated danger like heat from a fire. "No," she said softly. "I'm here to take you away from this place. Forever." Why? It was such a simple question. Such a reasonable question. And Bellatrix had no rational answer for it. "Because you're mine," she said finally. "I know that doesn't make sense. I know you don't know me. But you're mine, and I protect what's mine." Harry stared at her for a long moment. Then he said something that shattered her heart into 1,000 pieces. "Nobody's ever wanted me before." Bellatrix reached out, slowly, giving him time to flinch away. He didn't. Her fingers touched his cheek, gentle despite the calluses and the years of violence. "Then everyone else was blind," she whispered. "Because you're the most precious thing in this world, little prince. And I will burn down anyone who tells you differently." Getting Harry out of the cupboard was easy. Getting him to trust her enough to leave the house was harder. "But Uncle Vernon will be angry," he said, even as Bellatrix helped him to his feet. "He'll find me and bring me back, and then, your uncle will never touch you again. I swear it on my magic, on my blood, on everything I am." "You can't promise that." Adults always promise things and then, I am not other adults. Bellatrix knelt in front of him, making sure he could see her eyes. I am Bellatrix Black, and I have never broken a vow in my life. When I say I will protect you, I will protect you. Do you understand? Harry searched her face for something, lies, maybe, or the same cruelty he'd learned to expect from adults. He didn't find it. Okay, he said quietly. I'll come with you. Good. Bellatrix stood, held out her hand. We need to move quickly. The family will be home soon, and I'd rather not kill them in front of you. Harry took her hand. His fingers were tiny and cold and fit perfectly in her palm. You'd really kill them? In a heartbeat. Oh. A pause. Thank you. They were halfway to the front door when the car pulled into the driveway. Vernon Dursley was not a man who handled surprises well. He handled them even worse when the surprise was a wild-haired woman in dark robes standing in his entrance hall, holding his freak nephew's hand. What the bloody, Bellatrix flicked her wand, and Vernon's voice cut off mid-bellow. He grabbed at his throat, eyes bulging, trying to scream without sound. Petunia shrieked and pulled Dudley behind her. Who are you? What are you doing in our quiet? Another flick, and Petunia was silenced too. Sit down. All of you. Now. When they didn't move fast enough, Bellatrix threw them onto the couch with a wave of magic. Dudley started crying, great, hiccuping sobs that made his multiple chins wobble. Harry watched all of this with wide eyes, still holding Bellatrix's hand. You, Bellatrix said, pointing her wand at Vernon, have been hurting this child. Starving him. Beating him. Locking him in a cupboard like a dog. Vernon's face went from purple to white. He tried to speak, couldn't, settled for shaking his head frantically. Don't lie to me. I've watched. I've seen. Bellatrix stepped closer, and the temperature in the room dropped several degrees. I should kill you. I want to kill you. It would be so easy. So satisfying. Petunia was crying now too, clutching Dudley like a shield. But I won't. Do you know why? Vernon shook his head again. Because he is watching. Bellatrix glanced back at Harry. And he's seen enough violence in this house. So instead of killing you, I'm going to make you a promise. She leaned in close enough to smell Vernon's fierce sweat, close enough to see the veins throbbing in his temples. If you ever speak of this to anyone, the police, the neighbors, anyone at all, I will come back. And I will make what you did to Harry look like kindness. Do you understand? Vernon nodded so fast his head nearly fell off. Good. Bellatrix straightened up, fixed Petunia with a glare. That goes for you too. And if anyone asks, the boy ran away. Disappeared in the night. You don't know where he went, and you don't care. Petunia's eyes darted to Harry, and for a moment, something flickered there. Guilt, maybe. Or shame. But it was gone as quickly as it came, replaced by the same resentful hatred she'd always shown him. Some people couldn't be saved. Bellatrix had learned that long ago. Come, little prince. She tugged Harry toward the door. We're leaving. Wait. Harry pulled against her grip, looked back at his relatives. What about my things? What things? My blanket. From the cupboard. It's the only thing I have. The only thing. An old, threadbare blanket, probably third-hand, was the only possession this child had been allowed in 7 years. Bellatrix summoned the blanket with a wordless accio. It flew into Harry's free hand, and he clutched it to his chest like a treasure. Anything else? No. That's all. That's all. 2 words that told Bellatrix everything she needed to know about the Dursleys. 2 words that made her itch to turn around and finish what she'd started. But Harry was watching. So she walked out the front door, her little prince's hand in hers, and she didn't look back. The broom was hidden in the bushes across the street, an old Nimbus 1500 that Bellatrix had stolen from a Quidditch supply store 2 days ago. Not the fastest broom in the world, but fast enough. Harry stared at it with open wonder. Is that a real flying broom? Yes. We're going to ride it to somewhere safe. Have you ever flown before? No. I didn't even know brooms could fly. I didn't even know magic was real until, he stopped, looked down at his feet. Until you came. You didn't know you were a wizard. They told me my parents died in a car crash. They said I was a freak, that something was wrong with me, but they never said. He trailed off, confusion and hurt warring on his face. Why would they lie? Because they're monsters, Bellatrix wanted to say. Because they hated you for being special. Because small people destroy what they can't understand. But Harry was 7 years old, and he'd been through enough tonight. I'll explain everything later, she said instead. For now, we need to go. Can you hold on tight? I think so. Bellatrix mounted the broom, pulled Harry up in front of her, wrapped one arm securely around his waist. If you get scared, close your eyes. I won't let you fall. Promise? Promise. She kicked off, and they shot into the sky. Harry didn't close his eyes. He stared at the ground falling away beneath them, at the houses shrinking to dollhouse size, at the clouds rushing past like cotton candy. His mouth hung open, and his eyes were huge, and for the first time since Bellatrix had found him, he looked like a child. This is amazing. Bellatrix couldn't help it. She laughed. She couldn't remember the last time she'd laughed without cruelty in it. Couldn't remember the last time she'd felt something like joy. But here, flying through the night with this small, precious boy in her arms, she felt something crack open in her chest. Can we go higher? Harry asked. As high as you want. They climbed until the air grew thin and cold, until the stars seemed close enough to touch. Harry shivered, and Bellatrix cast a warming charm on both of them without thinking. The lights are so pretty from up here, Harry said quietly. Like fireflies. They're cities. Muggle cities. What's Muggle mean? People who can't do magic. Like your aunt and uncle. Oh. Harry was quiet for a moment. Then, I'm glad I'm not like them. Me too, little prince. Me too. They flew for hours, stopping twice so Harry could rest and so Bellatrix could check that they weren't being followed. By the time they reached their destination, the old black family property Narcissa had told her about, the sun was starting to rise. The house was ancient, covered in vines, hidden at the end of a long dirt road that didn't appear on any map. It had been abandoned for decades, and it showed, broken windows, sagging roof, gardens overgrown to the point of wilderness. But the wards were still intact. Bellatrix could feel them humming as she approached, recognizing her blood, acknowledging her right to be here. Is this where we're going to live? Harry asked, eyeing the decrepit structure with obvious doubt. Yes. I know it doesn't look like much, but it's safe. No one can find us here. It looks haunted. It probably is. The Black family has a lot of ghosts. Harry's eyes went wide. Real ghosts? Possibly. But they won't hurt you. Nothing in this house will hurt you. I won't allow it. She led him up the crumbling front steps, through the heavy oak door, into the entrance hall. It was dark and dusty and smelled of mold, but a few cleaning spells would fix that. Probably. I'm tired, Harry said, his voice small. I know. Let's find you a bedroom. The master suite on the second floor was in the best condition, relatively clean, with a massive four-poster bed that was only slightly moth-eaten. Bellatrix transfigured some old curtains into fresh sheets, cast a few more cleaning spells, and lifted Harry onto the bed. He sank into the mattress like he'd never felt anything so soft. This is a real bed. Of course it's a real bed. What else would it be? I've never had a real bed before. Just the mattress in the cupboard. Bellatrix's hands curled into fists. Well, you have one now. And a whole room to yourself. And anything else you want, once we get settled. Harry reached for her hand, held it tightly. Why are you being so nice to me? Because you're mine. Because I can't stop myself. Because looking at you makes something in my chest burn like fire, and I don't understand it, but I don't need to understand it to know it's real. Because you deserve it, she said finally. Because you deserve so much more than you've been given. And because I choose to. Harry's eyes were already closing, exhaustion finally winning out. Will you stay? He mumbled. Until I fall asleep. I'll stay as long as you want. She sat on the edge of the bed, holding his hand, watching his face relax into something approaching peace. Within minutes, he was asleep, his breathing deep and even, his grip on her hand loosening but not letting go. Bellatrix watched him sleep, and she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Maybe ever. Purpose. Not the purpose the Dark Lord had given her, which was really just servitude dressed up in fancy robes. This was different. This was hers. This was about choosing to protect, choosing to love, choosing to be something other than what she'd been. I don't know what I'm doing, she whispered to the sleeping boy. I've never been good. Never been kind. I've done terrible things, and I'd do them again if it meant keeping you safe. Harry shifted in his sleep, mumbled something that might have been, Bella. But I'm going to try. For you. I'm going to try to be better. It was the closest thing to a prayer she'd ever made. Miles away, in a castle hidden from the Muggle world, Albus Dumbledore sat in his office and stared at the monitoring device that was supposed to be tracking Harry Potter's location. The device was dark. Cold. Dead. No, Dumbledore whispered. He tapped it with his wand. Nothing. He cast every diagnostic spell he knew. Nothing. He reached out with his considerable power, searching for the unique magical signature of the boy who lived. Nothing. Harry Potter had vanished. The blood wards at Privet Drive were still intact, he could feel them, pulsing steadily in the distance. But the boy was no longer within them. Somehow, impossibly, someone had taken Harry away from the one place in the world where he was supposed to be protected. Dumbledore closed his eyes and allowed himself one moment of genuine emotion. Fear. Cold, crawling fear. Then he opened his eyes, and his face was calm again. Fawkes, he said quietly. Send word to the Order. All of them. Tell them we have a problem. The phoenix trilled mournfully and burst into flame, vanishing to deliver its message. Dumbledore rose from his chair, walked to the window, looked out at the grounds of Hogwarts. Somewhere out there, the most important piece in his carefully constructed plan was in the hands of an unknown enemy. He had to get the boy back. Whatever it took. Whatever it cost. Harry Potter was too valuable to lose. The next morning, Bellatrix made breakfast. Or rather, she attempted to make breakfast. The kitchen in the old black house was surprisingly well stocked. House elves had maintained it even after the family died out, but Bellatrix had never actually cooked anything in her life. Meals had always appeared in front of her, prepared by servants or elves, ready to eat. How hard could it be? Very hard, it turned out. The eggs caught fire. The toast turned into charcoal. The bacon somehow transformed into something that smelled like a burning curse. Harry walked into the kitchen just as Bellatrix was trying to extinguish the curtains. He said. Don't. Bellatrix shot him a warning glare, even as she conjured water to douse the flames. Don't say a word. But Harry was laughing. Actually laughing, shoulders shaking, hand over his mouth, eyes bright with genuine amusement. It's not funny, Bellatrix growled. It's a little funny. I am the most feared witch of my generation. I have tortured Aurors and fought the entire Department of Magical Law Enforcement to a standstill. I do not get laughed at by 7-year-olds. But you burned the kitchen. I am aware that I burned the kitchen. Harry laughed harder, and despite herself, Bellatrix felt her lips twitch. Fine, she said. It's a little funny. But you're not allowed to tell anyone. Who would I tell? Good point. They were fugitives hiding from the entire wizarding world. Harry's social circle was currently limited to Bellatrix herself. Can I help? Harry asked, moving toward the stove. I know how to cook. Aunt Petunia made me do it every day. The reminder of what he'd suffered sobered Bellatrix immediately. You don't have to cook for me. You don't have to do anything like that ever again. But I don't mind. I actually like cooking. It's the one thing I'm good at. He paused. Was good at. I guess I can be good at other things now. You can be good at anything you want. Bellatrix watched him expertly crack eggs into a pan, add butter, stir with a skill that came from years of practice. What do you want to be good at? Magic. I want to learn magic. Real magic, not just making things happen by accident. Then I'll teach you. Harry looked up at her, and there was something painfully hopeful in his eyes. Really? You'll really teach me? I'll teach you everything I know. Starting today. Bellatrix managed a smile that was only slightly terrifying. But first, we eat breakfast. Apparently, you're a better cook than me. Everyone's probably a better cook than you. Don't push it, little prince. After breakfast, they explored the house. It was larger than it appeared from the outside. Magic had expanded the interior to include dozens of rooms, multiple floors, a library, a potions lab, and what appeared to be a small dueling chamber. Most of it was covered in dust and cobwebs, but the bones were good. This was your family's house? Harry asked, poking at a portrait of a stern-looking wizard who glared down at him disapprovingly. My uncle's house. Orion Black. He was paranoid. Understatement of the century. Orion had been convinced the ministry would come for him at any moment, so he built this hidden fortress and warded it against every detection method known to wizardkind. But his paranoia is our protection now. Why would the ministry come for you? Bellatrix hesitated. This was the conversation she'd been dreading. Because I've done bad things, Harry. Very bad things. Before I went to prison, I was not a good person. Like what? Like. She took a deep breath. I followed a wizard who called himself Lord Voldemort. He was powerful and cruel, and he believed that wizards like us should rule over the non-magical world. I believed him. I did things in his name that hurt people. Killed some of them. Harry was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was small. Are you going to hurt me? No. The word came out immediately, fiercely. Never. I would die before I hurt you. But you hurt other people. I did. I'm not proud of it. Lies. She had been proud of it, once. But that seemed like a different lifetime now. But you're different. You're mine. I can't explain it better than that. Something happened to me in prison, and now you're the most important thing in the world. The only important thing. Harry considered this. Then he said something that surprised her. My aunt and uncle were supposed to be my family. They were supposed to protect me. But they didn't. They hurt me every day. So maybe being family doesn't mean what people say it means. Maybe it just means choosing someone. And protecting them. Bellatrix stared at him. 7 years old, and already wiser than most adults she'd known. Yes, she said finally. I think you're right. Then I choose you too. Harry's chin lifted, a stubborn set to his jaw that reminded Bellatrix, painfully, of herself. You're my family now. And I'll protect you back. When I learn how. Something warm bloomed in Bellatrix's chest. It hurt like healing. Deal, she whispered. Now. Let's start your first lesson. Magic, it turned out, came naturally to Harry. They started with the basics, wand movements, pronunciation, intent. Bellatrix had stolen a child's training wand from a shop in Diagon Alley. She was building quite a collection of stolen goods, and Harry held it like he'd been born to. Magic is about three things, Bellatrix explained. Want. Will. And way. You have to want the result. You have to will it to happen. And you have to give it a way to manifest. That's what wand movements and words are for. That's different from what the books say. The books are written by ministry-approved educators who want to keep magic controlled and safe. I'm going to teach you the way magic actually works. Harry listened intently, absorbing every word. Let's try a simple levitation charm. The word is Wingardium Leviosa. But that's not the important part. Bellatrix placed a feather on the table between them. The important part is wanting the feather to rise. Imagine it lifting. Feel it in your gut. Then speak the words and let your magic flow. Harry looked at the feather. His face scrunched up in concentration. Wingardium Leviosa. The feather didn't just rise. It shot toward the ceiling like a rocket, hit the plaster, and exploded into a shower of tiny fragments. Bellatrix stared. Then she started laughing. What? What did I do wrong? Nothing, little prince. Absolutely nothing. She ruffled his hair, still laughing. You have more raw power than most adult wizards. We're going to have to work on control, but the power is there. Oh, it's definitely there. Harry beamed at the praise, and Bellatrix felt that warm thing in her chest grow bigger. This was what she'd been missing all along. Not the Dark Lord's approval, which was always conditional and cold. Not the rush of power that came from hurting people. This simple, pure joy of watching someone she loved succeed. Had she ever loved anyone before Harry? She didn't think so. Not really. They spent the rest of the day on lessons. Not just magic, Bellatrix taught Harry about the wizarding world, about his history, about the war that had killed his parents. She didn't mention her own role in that war. Not yet. So my parents were wizards too, Harry said, processing everything he'd learned. And they were fighting against this Voldemort guy. And he killed them because of a prophecy? Yes. Bellatrix had pieced this together from fragmented Dementor memories and rumors she'd heard before her imprisonment. There was a prophecy that a child would be born who could defeat the Dark Lord. Voldemort believed that child was you. But I was just a baby. How did I defeat him if I was just a baby? No one knows. Something happened that night, something that shouldn't have been possible. Your mother sacrificed herself to protect you, and somehow, that protection destroyed Voldemort's body. But not all of him. Bellatrix paused. She hadn't considered that before, but the child was perceptive. I don't know. Maybe not. He was very powerful, and very interested in immortality. It's possible he survived in some form. Harry shivered. And people like you followed him? Wanted him to win? I did. Before. Bellatrix met his eyes steadily. I was devoted to him. Fanatically devoted. I thought he was going to create a new world, a better world, where wizards ruled and strength was respected. And now? Now I don't care about any of that. The only thing I care about is you. Because of what happened in prison. Because of what happened in prison. Harry nodded slowly, accepting this. He didn't flinch from her, didn't look at her with disgust. Just, accepted. Okay, he said. I guess people can change. I don't know if I've changed, Bellatrix admitted. I'm still dangerous. Still willing to hurt people who threaten us. But the target is different now. Before, it was anyone the Dark Lord pointed me at. Now, it's anyone who tries to hurt you. That seems better. Does it? Yeah. Harry smiled, small and tentative. Because now you're protecting someone. That's what good people do, right? They protect people. Good people. Bellatrix had never been called good in her life. She wasn't sure she deserved to be called good now. But maybe, with Harry's help, she could learn. The ward alarm shrieked at midnight. Bellatrix was on her feet instantly, wand in hand, body between Harry and the door before she'd fully processed what was happening. Stay behind me, she commanded. Whatever happens, stay behind me. Someone's found us. Someone got through the outer wards. She was already moving, guiding Harry toward the back of the house. There's a tunnel in the cellar. If I fall, you run. You keep running until you reach the edge of the wards, and then you apparate. I don't know how to apparate. Then you fly. The broom is by the back door. You take it and you fly north, as fast as you can, until you find help. I'm not leaving you. Bellatrix whirled on him, grabbed his shoulders. If I die protecting you, I die happy. But if you die, I die for nothing. Do you understand me? You are the only thing that matters. You. Harry's eyes were wide and frightened, but he nodded. Good. Now stay behind me. They crept through the dark house, Bellatrix's senses straining for any sign of the intruder. The wards shouldn't have been breachable, Orion had layered enough protections on this place to stop an army. But someone had gotten through anyway. Someone powerful. The front door exploded inward. Two figures strode through the wreckage, wizards in aura robes, wands drawn, faces grim. Behind them, Bellatrix could see more shapes in the darkness. 4. 6. Too many. Bellatrix Lestrange, the lead Auror called out. By order of the Ministry of Magic, you are under arrest for escape from Azkaban and the kidnapping of Harry Potter. Surrender your wand and the boy, and you will not be harmed. The boy. Bellatrix's voice dripped with contempt. His name is Harry. And you're not taking him anywhere. This isn't a negotiation. You're outnumbered and outmatched. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Bellatrix smiled. It was not a nice smile. I think you misunderstand the situation. You're the ones who are outmatched. She moved. The first Auror went down before he could raise his wand, a stunning spell so powerful it threw him through the ruined doorway and into the garden beyond. The second managed to get off a hex, but Bellatrix was already moving, flowing like water, her counter-curse meeting his spell in midair and shattering it. Engage, someone shouted, and suddenly spells were flying everywhere. Bellatrix fought like a demon. She'd always been powerful, always been skilled, but Azkaban had done something to her. Stripped away the hesitation, the mercy, the part of her that saw opponents as people. Now they were just obstacles between her and Harry. 2 more Aurors fell. Then 3. A hex clipped her shoulder, drawing blood, but she didn't slow down. Stupefy. A spell from behind, someone had flanked her. The red light streaked toward Harry. Time seemed to slow. Bellatrix was too far away. Her shield wouldn't make it. The spell was going to hit him, hurt him, take him from her. Harry raised his training wand. No. A shield burst into existence, crude, unstable, barely held together by raw power and desperate will. The stunning spell hit it and deflected, flying off into the ceiling. Harry had just performed defensive magic that most adult wizards couldn't manage. Bellatrix didn't have time to be proud. She spun, found the Auror who targeted Harry, and hit him with a curse that wasn't quite lethal but definitely wasn't gentle. He screamed and collapsed. Fall back. The remaining Aurors were retreating, dragging their fallen comrades. Fall back. She's too strong. They fled into the night, disappearing beyond the wards. Bellatrix stood in the ruined entrance hall, breathing hard, blood dripping from her shoulder. Around her, scorch marks covered the walls and ceiling. The smell of ozone filled the air. She turned to look at Harry. He was pale and shaking, the training wand still clutched in his hand, eyes wide with shock. "You did it," she said. "You cast a shield charm." I didn't know I could do that." "Neither did they." Bellatrix crossed to him, knelt down, pulled him into a hug. "You were magnificent, little prince. Absolutely magnificent." Harry clung to her, trembling. "I was so scared." "I know. It's okay to be scared. What matters is what you do when you're scared." She pulled back, looked into his eyes. "And you did exactly right. You protected yourself. You didn't run, you didn't freeze. You fought. Like you taught me. Like I taught you." Harry managed a shaky smile. Lesson 1. Never let anyone take what's yours. Bellatrix laughed, wild and joyous despite the carnage around them. "Exactly right. Now come on." She stood, took his hand. "We need to leave. They'll be back with reinforcements. We need to find somewhere else to hide." "Where?" "I don't know yet. But we'll figure it out together." She squeezed his hand. "We're family, remember? We protect each other." Harry nodded, straightening his spine, wiping the fear from his face. "Together," he agreed. They walked out the back door, into the darkness, leaving the ruined safe house behind. And somewhere in her chest, Bellatrix felt something that wasn't obsession or madness or desperate need. It was love. Real love, maybe for the first time in her life. She didn't know what was coming. She didn't know how they'd survive or what the future held. But she knew one thing with absolute certainty: she would burn the world down for this child. And anyone who stood in her way would learn what it meant to face the Dark Mother. Chapter 2, The Teaching. Harry's 8th birthday came on a Tuesday. Bellatrix had never thrown a birthday party in her life. She'd attended plenty, formal affairs with perfect decorations and the right guests and gifts that cost more than most families earned in a year. But she'd never planned one, never cared enough about anyone to bother. She cared now. "Close your eyes," she demanded, steering Harry through the hallway of their newest safe house, a crumbling manor in the Welsh countryside that had belonged to a distant black cousin who died without heirs. "Why?" "Because I said so." "Close them." Harry closed his eyes, a smile already pulling at his lips. 3 months of living with Bellatrix had taught him that her surprises were always worth waiting for. Terrifying sometimes, but worth it. She guided him into the main sitting room and positioned him in the center. "Okay. Open." Harry opened his eyes. The room was filled with floating candles, hundreds of them, drifting lazily through the air like stars brought indoors. Streamers in green and silver, Bellatrix's choices, obviously, hung from the ceiling. A massive cake sat on the table, slightly lopsided but determinately chocolate. And piled around it were presents, real presents, wrapped in actual paper with actual bows. Harry stared. "It's not much," Bellatrix said quickly, suddenly uncertain. "I've never done this before. The cake might be terrible, I made it myself, which was a mistake. And the presents are mostly books, because I didn't know what else it's perfect." Harry's voice cracked on the word. He turned to look at her, and there were tears streaming down his face. "What? What's wrong? Is it the streamers?" "I knew green was too much, no. It's perfect." He threw himself at her, wrapping his arms around her waist, burying his face in her robes. "No one's ever. I've never had a birthday party before. Uncle Vernon said freaks don't deserve birthdays." Bellatrix's arms came around him automatically, holding him close. Something hot and furious burned in her chest, the familiar urge to track down the Dursleys and show them exactly what happened to people who hurt her little prince. But that could wait. Today was about Harry. "Well," she said, her voice rough, "your Uncle Vernon was an idiot. You deserve every birthday. Every cake. Every present. You deserve everything good in this world, and I'm going to make sure you get it." Harry looked up at her, eyes red but smile bright. "Can I open the presents now?" "You can do whatever you want. It's your day." The presents were, as Bellatrix had warned, mostly books. But they weren't ordinary books, they were rare volumes on defensive magic, ancient texts on blood wards, handwritten journals from the Black family library detailing spells that had never been published. "This one's from Mother's collection," Bellatrix said, handing him a leather-bound tome that hummed with residual magic. Druella Black's personal grimoire. She was one of the most powerful witches of her generation. Harry ran his fingers over the cover reverently. "And this one?" Bellatrix pulled out a long, thin package. "Isn't a book." Harry unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a wand, not a training wand, but a real one. Dark wood, elegantly carved, warm to the touch. "I had it made," Bellatrix explained. "Holly and phoenix feather." The wand maker said it was remarkably similar to, well, to another wand he made once. He seemed disturbed by that, but I didn't care. "It chose you." I could feel it. Harry lifted the wand, and the air in the room crackled. Sparks shot from the tip, red and gold, bright as fireworks. The candles flared. The streamers danced. "Whoa," Harry breathed. "Whoa indeed." Bellatrix's smile was sharp with pride. "You're going to be extraordinary, little prince. You already are." After cake, which was actually pretty good, despite its lopsided appearance, they settled into their usual routine, training. 3 months had transformed Harry from a frightened, underfed child into something else entirely. He was still small for his age, years of malnutrition couldn't be undone overnight, but he moved differently now. Confidently. Aware of his body and what it could do. His magic had grown even faster than his confidence. Again, Bellatrix commanded. Harry raised his new wand, faced the training dummy on the other side of the room, and fired. Stupefy. The red light hit the dummy dead center. It flew backward, crashed into the wall, and crumpled to the ground. "Good. But you're telegraphing. I could see the spell coming before you cast it." Bellatrix moved behind him, adjusted his stance. "Magic should be invisible until it's not. Your enemy shouldn't know what's coming until it's already hit them." "How do I do that?" "Minimize your movement. The wand flourish you're doing, that's textbook. It's what they teach at Hogwarts. But it's slow and obvious." She demonstrated, her own wand barely moving as she sent a spell streaking toward the dummy. "See? Same spell. No warning." Harry watched intently, then tried again. "Better. Not perfect, but better. We'll work on it." Bellatrix ruffled his hair. "Now. Let's try something harder." By noon, Harry had practiced offensive spells, defensive shields, basic dueling footwork, and something Bellatrix called instinct training. Essentially, she fired hexes at him without warning and he had to react. He was exhausted. He was exhilarated. He was also starving. "Lunch break," Bellatrix announced. "And then we continue with theory. Theory's boring. Theory keeps you alive. Any fool can throw spells. Understanding why magic works gives you an edge over everyone who doesn't." They ate in the kitchen, sandwiches that Harry had made, because Bellatrix's cooking had not improved despite months of practice. She claimed it was the ingredients. Harry claimed it was her complete inability to follow a recipe. "I don't need recipes," she huffed. "I'm a black. We create our own paths." Your path leads to burned toast and inedible eggs. Keep talking, little prince. See what happens to your dessert. Harry grinned around his sandwich. This was their rhythm now. Training and teasing and learning and laughing. It was nothing like the life Harry had imagined for himself back at the Dursleys, where the future had been nothing but more of the same, more cupboards, more hunger, more pain. Now the future felt bright. Dangerous, maybe. Uncertain, definitely. But bright. Bella. What happens when they catch us? Bellatrix's expression didn't change, but Harry had learned to read her. The slight tension in her shoulders. The way her fingers tightened on her cup. They won't. But if they do? They won't. She met his eyes, absolutely certain. I won't let them. I will fight until there's nothing left of me before I let anyone take you back to that house or hand you over to Dumbledore. Do you understand? But what if, Harry? She reached across the table, took his hand. I spent 12 years in the worst prison in the world. I survived Dementors, isolation, starvation, and my own madness. I escaped through wards that should have been unbreakable. I did all of that because I needed to find you. Do you really think anything in this world can stop me from protecting you now that I have you? Harry looked at her, wild-haired, fierce-eyed, slightly terrifying Bellatrix Lestrange, and shook his head. No. I don't think anything can stop you. Good. Because nothing can. She squeezed his hand. Now finish your sandwich. We have blood magic theory to cover. Blood magic, Harry was learning, was not what the ministry said it was. They'll tell you it's dark, Bellatrix explained, spreading ancient texts across the table. Evil. Forbidden. And some of it is, there are blood rituals that require sacrifice, that bind souls, that steal life. Those are dark. But not all of it. Not even most of it. Blood magic is about connection. About family. About the bonds between people who share blood or choose to share it. She pointed to a diagram in one of the books. The wards that protected you at your aunt's house, those were blood magic. Your mother's sacrifice, channeled through her blood connection to her sister. Dumbledore used it to keep you safe. Harry frowned. But he put me with people who hurt me. Yes. Bellatrix's voice was carefully controlled. The wards protected you from external threats. Death Eaters, dark creatures, anyone who wished you magical harm. But they did nothing against the Muggles themselves. Dumbledore either didn't consider that a threat or didn't care. Which do you think it was? Bellatrix hesitated. This was a conversation she'd been avoiding. I think Dumbledore cares about the greater good, she said finally. I think he believes that any individual's suffering is acceptable if it serves his larger goals. And I think he saw your suffering as useful. Useful how? A child who's never been loved is desperate for approval. Easy to manipulate. Easy to control. The words tasted bitter in Bellatrix's mouth. I think Dumbledore wanted you grateful and obedient when you finally entered the wizarding world. Ready to do whatever he asked because he'd be the first person to show you kindness. Harry absorbed this quietly. Then, that's horrible. Yes. But you were going to kill me. Before. When you followed Voldemort. Yes. Bellatrix didn't flinch from the truth. I would have killed you without hesitation. You were the enemy. The child who destroyed my master. What changed? Everything, Bellatrix wanted to say. You changed everything. The Dementors took my devotion to the Dark Lord, she said instead. Fed on it until nothing was left. And into that empty space came, you. Your memories. Your pain. Your need for someone, anyone, to care about you. She met his eyes. I can't explain it better than that. Something in me broke, and something else grew in its place. Something that needs to protect you like I need to breathe. Is it magic? What you feel? Maybe. Probably. But does it matter? Bellatrix reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind his ear. Magic or not, the feeling is real. You're my little prince. My family. And I will spend the rest of my life keeping you safe, whether I chose this fate or it chose me. Harry was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled, small, but genuine. I'm glad it chose you. So am I, little prince. So am I. The wards chimed softly at 3 in the afternoon, not the harsh alarm of an intruder, but the gentle notification of an expected visitor. That'll be Narcissa, Bellatrix said, rising from the table. Stay here. I want to come. Fine. But stay behind me until I confirm it's her. They walked to the entrance hall together, Harry's new wand in his hand. Bellatrix had drilled constant vigilance into him over the past months. Trust no one. Expect betrayal. Always have an exit strategy. Paranoid? Maybe. But paranoia kept you alive. The door swung open to reveal Narcissa Malfoy, her blonde hair perfect, her robes immaculate, her face carefully composed. Behind her stood a man Harry didn't recognize, tall, dark-haired, with the kind of face that looked like it had been in too many fights and enjoyed every one of them. Bella. Narcissa swept inside, pulling her sister into a brief embrace. You look better. I feel better. Bellatrix's eyes were on the stranger. Who's this? Cole Ashworth. The man's voice was American, rough around the edges. I'm a friend. Narcissa doesn't have friends. She has useful contacts. Cole grinned, apparently not offended. Fair enough. I'm a useful contact, then. Your sister hired me to help with your little fugitive situation. Hired you to do what, exactly? Information, mostly. I used to be an Auror, American branch. Quit after I got tired of following orders that didn't make sense. Now I work freelance. Find things. Find people. Make problems go away. Bellatrix's wand hadn't lowered. And why should I trust you? You shouldn't. You don't know me. Cole shrugged easily. But I've got information you need, and your sisters paid me enough to guarantee my loyalty for the foreseeable future. Beyond that, trust is earned. I get it. Harry watched the exchange with interest. The man, Cole, moved like Bellatrix did. Loose and ready, like he could explode into violence at any moment. But there was something different about him too. Something almost relaxed. What information? Bellatrix demanded. Ministry movements. Dumbledore's plans. The locations of every Auror patrol for the next month. Cole reached into his coat, pulled out a thick folder. Also, intelligence on a more immediate threat. Which is? Your husband's out. The folder hit the table with a heavy thump. Inside were photographs, documents, intercepted communications. All of it pointed to the same conclusion: Rodolphus Lestrange had escaped from Azkaban 2 weeks ago and was hunting them. How? Bellatrix demanded. The ward should have held him for another decade at least. Someone helped him. Cole spread the documents out. We're not sure who yet. But he didn't escape alone, at least 3 other Death Eaters went with him. Rabaston, obviously. And 2 others we haven't identified. Why didn't you tell me immediately? Bellatrix's voice was dangerous. Narcissa answered. I wanted to confirm the intelligence first. And I wanted Cole here when I told you, in case you did something rash. Rash? My husband is hunting us, and you thought I'd be rash. You have a history, Bella. Fair point, Harry thought. Bellatrix absolutely had a history. Where is he now? Bellatrix asked, forcing calm into her voice. Unknown. But he's been seen in London, asking questions. Offering gold for information about you. Cole tapped one of the photographs. This was taken 3 days ago. He's not being subtle. Harry looked at the photo. It showed a man with dark hair and a cruel face, standing in what looked like Knockturn Alley. Something about him made Harry's skin crawl. He looks mean, Harry said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. He is mean, Bellatrix confirmed. Rodolphus is, he was my husband. An arranged marriage, our families wanted to combine their bloodlines. I never loved him. But I was loyal to him because he was loyal to the Dark Lord. And now? Now he hates me. Bellatrix's voice was matter-of-fact. I abandoned everything he believed in. Rejected the Dark Lord's cause. Took up with the child who destroyed our master. In his mind, I'm a traitor of the worst kind. Will he try to kill you? Probably. But more importantly, he'll try to kill you. Bellatrix's hand found Harry's shoulder, squeezed tight. You're the symbol of my betrayal. Destroying you would be his revenge on me and a gift to the Dark Lord if he ever returns. We need to move, Narcissa said. This location isn't secure enough if Rodolphus is actively searching. Agreed. Bellatrix was already calculating. The property in Ireland. The one Uncle Alfred left me. That's barely habitable. I'll make it habitable. The wards there are stronger, and it's completely off the grid. Even the goblins don't know about it. Cole nodded. I'll run interference. Create some false trails, make it look like you're heading north instead of west. And what do you get out of this? Bellatrix asked suspiciously. Your sister's gold, mainly. But also. Cole's eyes flickered to Narcissa, just for a moment. Something passed between them that Harry didn't quite understand. Let's just say I've got personal reasons for wanting to see Death Eaters fail. Personal reasons? They killed someone I loved. Long time ago. Before they were Death Eaters, technically, they were just Grindelwald's people then. But same ideology. Same hatred. His jaw tightened. I've spent my whole life fighting that kind of darkness. Helping you fight it too seems like a good use of my time. Bellatrix studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she lowered her wand. Fine. You can help. But if you betray us, I know. Cole smiled grimly. You'll kill me in creative and horrifying ways. Your sister already gave me that speech. Good. Then we understand each other. They left that night. The journey to Ireland was longer than Harry expected. They couldn't use magical transportation without risking detection, so they flew on brooms through the darkness, wrapped in disillusionment charms. Harry was getting better at flying. 3 months of practice had turned his natural talent into genuine skill. He still couldn't match Bellatrix, who flew like she'd been born on a broom, but he could keep up. How much farther? He asked, his arms aching from holding position. Another hour. We'll rest when we get there. Can we go over the water? I've never seen the ocean from above. Bellatrix hesitated, then banked left, leading them out over the Irish Sea. Harry gasped. The water below was black and endless, stretching to the horizon in every direction. The moon reflected off the waves, creating a path of silver light that seemed to lead to infinity. Stars scattered across the sky like spilled diamonds. It's beautiful, Harry breathed. Yes. Bellatrix's voice was soft. I used to fly over the ocean when I was young. Before everything. It made me feel free. Do you feel free now? In a way. She glanced at him, and even through the darkness, he could see her smile. I'm a fugitive being hunted by the Ministry and my own husband. I'm responsible for an 8-year-old boy who might be the most powerful wizard of his generation. I have no idea what the future holds. That doesn't sound very free. Ah, but here's the secret, little prince. I'm not doing any of this because someone ordered me to. I'm doing it because I choose to. Because you matter to me. Because protecting you is what I want." She reached out, squeezed his arm. "That's freedom. Real freedom. Choosing your own purpose." Harry thought about this as they flew through the night. He'd never had choices before. At the Dursleys, everything was decided for him, where he slept, what he ate, when he was allowed to exist. Even at Privet Drive, his whole life had been about following orders and avoiding punishment. But now he had choices. He could choose to trust Bellatrix. Choose to learn magic. Choose to fight back against people who wanted to hurt him. He could choose his own future. "I like being free," he said finally. "Good." Bellatrix's grin flashed in the moonlight. "Because you're going to be freer than anyone else in the world, little prince. I'm going to make sure of it." The Irish property was, as Narcissa had warned, barely habitable. It was a cottage rather than a manor, small, stone-built, covered in moss and ivy. The roof had holes. The windows were cracked. The door hung off its hinges, and the inside smelled like mildew and neglect. But the wards were extraordinary. Harry could feel them as soon as they crossed the property line, layers upon layers of protection, so old and deep they'd sunk into the very bones of the earth. This place had been warded by generations of paranoid black ancestors, each one adding their own protections. Uncle Alfred was a strange man, Bellatrix said, surveying the wreckage of the cottage with her hands on her hips. Brilliant, but strange. He spent 30 years adding wards to this place. By the end, even he couldn't remember all of them. Is it safe? Safer than anywhere else in Britain. Or Ireland, for that matter. She raised her wand. Now let's make it livable. Repairing the cottage took 3 days. Bellatrix handled the structural damage, regrowing the roof, sealing the windows, reinforcing the walls. Harry helped where he could, practicing basic repair charms under her supervision. By the end of the first day, the cottage was weatherproof if not pretty. By the end of the second day, they'd restored the interior, furniture unpacked from shrunken trunks, beds made, kitchen stocked with food Narcissa had provided. The place still smelled a bit musty, but it was home. By the end of the third day, Harry was itching to continue his training. "Can we practice dueling?" he asked over breakfast. "Real dueling, not just drills." Bellatrix raised an eyebrow. "You want to duel me?" "I want to try. I know I'll lose, but I want to see how long I can last." Pride flickered across Bellatrix's face. "All right, little prince. Let's see what you've got." They stood in the clearing behind the cottage, wands raised, facing each other. The morning sun cast long shadows across the grass. "Rules," Bellatrix said. "No unforgivables, obviously. Nothing that would cause permanent damage. First one to be disarmed or incapacitated loses. Understood?" Harry nodded. "Good. Begin." She didn't give him time to react. A stunning spell was already flying toward his chest before she'd finished speaking. Harry dove right, rolled, came up with his wand pointing. Expelliarmus. Bellatrix batted the spell aside lazily. Predictable. Everyone uses Expelliarmus first. Try again. Another stunner. Harry dodged, fired back, 2 spells in quick succession, trying to overwhelm her. She deflected both without moving her feet. Better. But you're still telegraphing. I can see your shoulder tense before you cast. Harry gritted his teeth and attacked again. This time he moved while casting, circling left, trying to find an angle she couldn't defend. Bellatrix matched him step for step, her wand flicking almost lazily to counter everything he threw. It was like dueling a mirror that could predict the future. "You're thinking too much," she said, deflecting another hex. "Magic isn't about thought. It's about instinct. Stop planning and start reacting." Harry tried to clear his mind, tried to let instinct take over. But every time he thought he had an opening, Bellatrix was already there, already countering. He was getting frustrated. And frustrated was sloppy. "Stupefy," he shouted, putting everything he had into the spell. Bellatrix sidestepped it like it was moving in slow motion. Good power. Terrible aim. Impedimenta. She deflected it into a tree, which froze solid. Incarcerus. Ropes shot from his wand, and for just a moment, Harry thought he had her. Bellatrix slashed her wand, and the ropes turned to ash in midair. Nice try. She grinned, wild and fierce. My turn. The next 30 seconds were the most terrifying of Harry's life. Spells came at him from every angle, stunners, disarmers, hexes he didn't even recognize. He dodged and blocked and retreated, barely staying ahead of the onslaught. His shield charm shattered. His wand arm went numb from a grazing hex. He tripped over his own feet and went down hard. Bellatrix's wand was at his throat before he could move. Dead, she said cheerfully. But you lasted longer than I expected. 43 seconds. That's not very long. It's longer than most adults would manage against me. She offered him a hand, pulled him up. You have talent, Harry. Real talent. But talent isn't enough. You need practice. Experience. Time. How much time? Years. Maybe decades to reach your full potential. Bellatrix's smile softened. But that's okay. We have time. And I'm going to teach you everything I know. Everything. Everything. Defense. Offense. Dark arts theory. Blood magic. Dueling. Strategy. Politics. She put her hand on his shoulder. By the time I'm done with you, you'll be the most dangerous wizard in Britain. Maybe the world. Harry looked at her, this wild, fierce, terrifying woman who'd broken out of prison just to save him. Who'd killed for him? Who'd die for him? I don't want to be dangerous, he said quietly. I just want to be safe. Oh, little prince. Bellatrix's voice was gentle. In this world, dangerous is safe. The stronger you are, the fewer people can threaten you. That's the truth no one wants to admit. Harry thought about this. Thought about the Dursleys, who'd hurt him because they could. Thought about Dumbledore, who'd left him there because it served his plans. Thought about Rodolphus, who was hunting them right now. Okay, he said finally. Teach me to be dangerous. Bellatrix's grin could have lit up the night sky. With pleasure, little prince. With pleasure. A week later, Cole arrived with news. Rodolphus is getting closer, he said, spreading maps across the kitchen table. He's narrowed your location to Ireland. Probably has another week before he figures out which county. How did he get this far? Bellatrix demanded. He's not stupid, unfortunately. He knows your family properties as well as you do. He's working through the list systematically. This place isn't on any list. No, but it's connected to Alfred Black, and Rodolphus knows you were close to your uncle. It's only a matter of time before he puts the pieces together. Bellatrix paced the kitchen, her mind racing. We could run again. Find somewhere else to hide. Running only delays the problem, Cole pointed out. Eventually, you'll run out of places to hide. You need to deal with Rodolphus permanently. Are you suggesting I kill my husband? I'm suggesting you do whatever's necessary to protect your kid. Harry, sitting in the corner, spoke up. I'm not her kid. Both adults turned to look at him. Technically, Harry amended. But she acts like my mom. And I feel like she's my family. More than anyone else ever was. Something complicated passed across Bellatrix's face. Pride. Love. Fierce protectiveness. Blood doesn't make family, she said finally. Choice does. And I choose you, Harry Potter. Whatever that makes us, that's what we are. Then stop running. Harry's voice was stronger now. Teach me to fight. And when Rodolphus comes, we'll face him together. You're 8 years old. I'm 8 years old and I've already beaten 2 Aurors. Well, 1.5. The point is, I'm not helpless. And I'm tired of hiding. Bellatrix stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she smiled. Narcissa was right, she murmured. You really are like me. Is that a good thing? It means you'll survive. Which is the only thing that matters. She turned back to Cole. We're not running. We're preparing. Tell Narcissa I need everything she can get me, potions, weapons, intelligence on Rodolphus's movements. We're going to end this. Cole nodded, something like respect in his eyes. I'll let her know. The next 2 weeks were the most intense of Harry's life. Bellatrix trained him like his life depended on it, which, she reminded him constantly, it did. They practiced dueling every morning, theory every afternoon, and battle strategy every evening. Harry learned hexes and counter-curses and shield variations he'd never known existed. He also learned something unexpected, how to kill. I'm not teaching you this because I want you to kill, Bellatrix explained, demonstrating the wand movement for the killing curse on a practice dummy. I'm teaching you because you need to understand it. The unforgivables require absolute conviction. You have to want the result more than anything else in the world. Have you used them? The unforgivables? Yes. No hesitation. No shame. Many times. On the Dark Lord's orders, mostly. But also because I enjoyed it. I won't lie to you about that. Do you still enjoy it? Bellatrix paused. I enjoy protecting you. If hurting someone is necessary to protect you, then yes, I'll enjoy it. But random cruelty? Pain for its own sake? She shook her head. That was the old me. The me who didn't have anything worth caring about. And now you do. Now I have you. She met his eyes steadily. Which is worth more than any pleasure I ever got from cruelty. Harry processed this. It was a strange kind of morality, dark, conditional, centered entirely on him. But somehow, it felt more honest than the sanitized ethics he'd been taught at school. Will you teach me the actual curse? He asked. Not to use. Just to understand. Not yet. You're too young, and the ministry has ways of tracking unforgivables. But someday, when you're older and stronger, I'll teach you everything. Including how not to use it. How not to. The hardest lesson of all. Knowing you can kill someone and choosing not to. Bellatrix's smile was sad. I didn't learn that lesson until I met you. Don't make my mistakes, little prince. The evening before Rodolphus was expected to find them, Narcissa arrived with Cole. I have news, she said, and her face was troubled. About Dumbledore. They gathered around the kitchen table, Harry, Bellatrix, Narcissa, Cole, like a war council. Which, Harry realized, was exactly what they were. Dumbledore has authorized the Aurors to use lethal force, Narcissa said. The official position is that Bellatrix is too dangerous to capture alive, and Harry. Harry is to be recovered or eliminated. Eliminated? Bellatrix's voice could have frozen fire. That's the official wording. If recovery seems impossible, they're authorized to use killing methods to prevent you from keeping him. The room went silent. Harry felt something cold settle in his stomach. He'd rather see me dead than free, he said quietly. It's not about you specifically, Cole said. It's about control. Dumbledore's been running the wizarding world from behind the scenes for decades. The boy who lived outside his control is a threat to everything he's built. How do you know so much about Dumbledore's operations? Bellatrix demanded. Because I've been watching him for years. American magical government has concerns about his influence. They asked me to keep an eye on things. You're a spy. I'm a lot of things. Spy is one of them. Cole shrugged. But my loyalty's to your sister now. And to you, by extension. Whatever I know, you know. Bellatrix looked at Narcissa. Something unspoken passed between the sisters. He's trustworthy, Bella. I wouldn't have brought him here otherwise. And what exactly is your relationship with him? Narcissa's cheeks actually colored. That's not relevant to the current discussion. Sissy, we're focused on survival right now, not my personal life. Harry hid a smile. He'd noticed the way Cole looked at Narcissa, and the way she very pointedly didn't look back. There was definitely something there. But Bellatrix was right, it wasn't the time. So Dumbledore wants us dead, Harry said, bringing the conversation back on track. And Rodolphus wants us dead. What do we do about it? Rodolphus first, Bellatrix decided. He's the immediate threat. Dumbledore is playing a longer game, he won't move directly until he has to. And how do we handle Rodolphus? Bellatrix's smile was sharp as a knife. We don't handle him. We destroy him. The attack came at dawn. Harry was woken by the ward screaming, a sound like 1,000 bells ringing at once, sharp and urgent. He was on his feet, wand in hand, before his eyes were fully open. Harry! Bellatrix's voice from downstairs. Stay in your room. Harry ignored her and ran toward the sound of combat. He reached the bottom of the stairs just in time to see Bellatrix blast a Death Eater through the kitchen wall. Another was already down, unconscious or dead. But more were coming, he could see them through the ruined front door, dark shapes moving through the pre-dawn mist. I told you to stay upstairs. Bellatrix snapped, not taking her eyes off the door. I told you I'm not helpless. This isn't a training exercise, Harry. These people will kill you. Then I'd better kill them first. Before she could argue, another Death Eater burst through the door. Harry reacted on instinct, his wand coming up, his magic surging. Stupefy. The spell hit the Death Eater square in the chest. He dropped like a puppet with cut strings. Bellatrix stared at Harry for a split second. Then she laughed, wild, delighted, absolutely unhinged. That's my boy. That's my boy. She turned back to the door, and together they faced the next wave. Fighting Death Eaters was nothing like the training duels. The spells came faster, harder, with lethal intent behind them. Harry's shield shattered twice in the first minute, and only Bellatrix's intervention kept him from being hit by curses that would have ended him. But he didn't stop. Didn't freeze. Didn't run. He fought. Impedimenta. A Death Eater slowed to a crawl, giving Bellatrix time to finish him. Protego. A shield deflected a hex that would have taken his head off. Incarcerus. Ropes wrapped around a woman who'd been trying to flank them, pulling her to the ground. Harry was panting, sweating, terrified, but also alive. More alive than he'd ever felt. Every nerve was singing, every sense heightened. This was what he'd trained for. This was why Bellatrix had pushed him so hard. And then Rodolphus Lestrange walked through the door. He was taller than Harry had expected. Broader. His face was scarred and cruel, and his eyes were fixed on Bellatrix with an intensity that made Harry's skin crawl. Wife, Rodolphus said. We need to talk. We have nothing to say to each other. You broke your vows. You abandoned our Lord. You took up with the very child who destroyed him. Rodolphus's voice was calm, almost conversational. I think we have quite a lot to say. Our Lord is dead, Bellatrix spat. Destroyed by a baby. Some dark lord he turned out to be. He will return. The Dark Lord always returns. And when he does, I will present him with your corpse and the Potter brat's head as a welcome gift. Harry raised his wand. You're not touching her. Rodolphus's eyes moved to him, and his lips curled in disgust. The abomination speaks. Tell me, boy, what exactly do you think you're going to do against me? Whatever I have to. Rodolphus laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. You've been teaching him, Bella. How sweet. Teaching him to die with dignity, at least. But teaching implies learning, and what could a child possibly learn that would? Harry moved. He'd practiced this sequence 100 times, Bellatrix had drilled it into him until it was muscle memory. Feint right, cast left, follow up with a disarming charm while they're off balance. Stupefy. The spell was fast. Faster than Harry had ever cast it before. But Rodolphus was fast too. He deflected the stunner with a casual flick and sent a counter curse that Harry barely dodged. Impressive, Rodolphus admitted. For a child. But you're playing with adults now, boy. He raised his wand, and the temperature in the room dropped. Crucio. The pain hit Harry like a wave of fire. He screamed, couldn't help it, couldn't stop it. Every nerve in his body was burning, every muscle convulsing. This was pain beyond anything the Dursleys had ever inflicted, pain beyond imagination. And then it stopped. Bellatrix was standing over him, her wand pressed against Rodolphus's throat. Her face was a mask of fury so intense it barely looked human. Touch him again, she whispered, and I will make what I did to the Longbottoms look like kindness. You can't kill me. Rodolphus's voice was strained but defiant. The marriage bond prevents it. We're bound by blood magic, remember? The marriage bond prevents us from killing each other directly. It doesn't prevent me from making you beg for death. Bella, you tortured an 8-year-old child with an unforgivable. My child. The person I love most in this world. Her wand dug deeper into his throat. The marriage bond is about to learn what happens when someone threatens what's mine. She slashed her wand, and Rodolphus screamed. Harry watched from the floor, still trembling from the aftereffects of the Cruciatus curse, as Bellatrix dismantled her husband. It wasn't a duel. It was a demolition. Every spell Rodolphus cast was deflected or countered. Every attack was turned back on him tenfold. Bellatrix moved like a force of nature, unstoppable, inevitable, absolutely merciless. You thought I was loyal to the Dark Lord, she hissed, breaking Rodolphus's shield arm with a perfectly placed curse. You thought I was his devoted servant, just like you. But you never understood me, husband. I was never devoted to him. I was devoted to power. And now I've found something more powerful than the Dark Lord ever was. What? Rodolphus gasped, trying to raise his wand with his remaining functional arm. Bellatrix blasted the wand out of his hand. Love, she said simply. The power the Dark Lord knew not. The power that defeated him when he was at his strongest. The power that's going to destroy you now. She raised her wand for the final blow. But the killing curse wouldn't come. Harry saw her try, saw the word form on her lips, saw her magic surge toward the killing point. But something stopped her. Something ancient and binding, woven into the very fabric of their marriage bond. Can't do it, Rodolphus rasped, laughing despite his broken body. Told you. The bond prevents direct killing. Bellatrix snarled in frustration. But Harry, still on the floor, still shaking, understood something that she didn't. The bond prevented her from killing him directly. It said nothing about Harry. Bella, he said quietly. Move. She turned to look at him, saw the wand in his hand, and understood. Without a word, she stepped aside. Harry pointed his wand at Rodolphus Lestrange, the man who had tortured him, hunted him, tried to kill everyone he loved. You should have stayed in prison, Harry said. And then he cast the most powerful stunning spell of his life. The magic that erupted from his wand was unlike anything he'd produced before. It was raw and wild and angry, fueled by pain and fear and the desperate need to protect the woman who'd saved him. The spell hit Rodolphus like a freight train. It threw him backward, through the wall, out of the cottage, and into the wards surrounding the property. The wards that were designed to repel anyone who meant harm to those inside. There was a flash of light. A scream. And then silence. Bellatrix walked to the hole in the wall and looked out. Harry saw her shoulders relax. "He's not dead," she said. "But the wards have him. He's in some kind of stasis. The protections recognized him as a threat and contained him. What do we do with him?" "Leave him for the ministry." Bellatrix turned back to Harry, and her expression softened. "Are you all right?" "I got cruciated by a Death Eater and then knocked him through a wall with accidental magic. I'm pretty far from all right." He managed a shaky smile. "But I'm alive. We're alive." Bellatrix crossed the room, pulled him into a fierce hug. "You magnificent, terrifying, absolutely insane little prince," she whispered. "Don't you ever scare me like that again. You scared me. I thought he was going to kill you. Please. Your mother couldn't kill me. Dumbledore couldn't kill me. A third-rate Death Eater like Rodolphus never had a chance." Harry laughed, even though everything hurt. Even though his magic felt drained and his body felt broken and he wanted nothing more than to sleep for a week. Because they'd won. Against all odds, against a superior enemy, against the combined forces of the Ministry and the Death Eaters and everyone who wanted them dead, they'd won. And they'd done it together. The cleanup took hours. Cole and Narcissa arrived shortly after dawn, alerted by the failing wards. They helped Bellatrix repair the cottage, dispose of the unconscious Death Eaters, and secure Rodolphus's frozen form for eventual Ministry collection. "The Aurors will be here within a day," Cole warned. "The magical signature of that fight will have been detected all across Ireland." "Let them come," Bellatrix said. "I'm tired of running." "Bella," Narcissa started. "I'm not going back to Azkaban, sissy. But I'm done hiding like a rat. It's time to take the fight to Dumbledore." "And how exactly do you plan to do that?" Bellatrix smiled. It was not a reassuring expression. "By exposing him. By showing the world what he really is. He's been manipulating events from the shadows for decades, it's time to drag him into the light. You'll need proof. Then we'll get proof." Bellatrix looked at Harry. "Starting with the boy he was willing to sacrifice. The boy who lived. The most famous child in Britain. Once people hear what Dumbledore did to him, what he allowed to be done to him, they'll turn on him." "That's dangerous," Cole warned. "Dumbledore has allies everywhere. He's practically untouchable. So was the Dark Lord." Bellatrix's voice was steel. "Until he wasn't." That night, after the cottage was repaired and the wards were strengthened, Harry and Bellatrix sat on the roof and watched the stars. "You're different," Harry said. "From when I first met you." "Am I?" "Yeah. You're still scary. But you're also, I don't know, calmer." Bellatrix considered this. "I think you're right. I spent 12 years in Azkaban going slowly mad, dreaming of the Dark Lord's return. And then the Dementors took that dream away, and I was empty. Lost. I didn't know who I was without my devotion. And now you do. Now I'm your protector. Your teacher. Your family." She looked at him, and her eyes were soft in a way they never used to be. "You gave me purpose, Harry. You gave me something worth living for that wasn't destruction. I didn't know I needed that until I had it." Harry leaned against her, and she put her arm around him. "Bella." "Yes. When this is over, when Dumbledore's stopped and we're safe, what do we do?" "Whatever we want." Bellatrix smiled up at the stars. "Maybe travel. See the world. Find places where no one knows our names and we can just be. I'd like that. So would I, little prince. So would I. They sat in comfortable silence, the dark mother and her little prince, watching the stars wheel overhead. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, the ministry, Dumbledore, the whole wizarding world turned against them. But tonight, they were safe. They were together. They were family. And that was enough. The next morning, a letter arrived by owl. Not just any letter, a letter bearing the seal of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement and the personal signature of Amelia Bones. She wants to meet, Bellatrix said, reading the letter with narrowed eyes. Alone. At a location of her choosing. It's a trap, Harry said immediately. Maybe. But Bones has a reputation for fairness. If there's anyone in the ministry willing to listen to our side of the story, it's her. You're not actually considering this. I'm considering all options. Bellatrix folded the letter. Bones was investigating something before she was suspended, I want to know what. And if she's willing to help us. She's ministry. She hunted us. She also let us go when she could have turned us in. Remember? Harry did remember. The chance encounter in Diagon Alley, when Bones had cornered them but let them escape after hearing Harry's story. You think she's on our side? I think she's on the side of justice. Which might not be the same as Dumbledore's side. Bellatrix smiled grimly. In any war, Harry, you need allies. Even unexpected ones. The meeting was arranged for the following day, at a neutral location, a Muggle cafe in Dublin that neither party had any connection to. Cole came as backup, lurking outside with a clear line of sight through the windows. Amelia Bones looked older than she had the last time Harry saw her. Tired. But her eyes were sharp, and she carried herself with the same commanding presence that probably made her terrifying in the Wizengamot. Mrs. Lestrange, she said, sitting down across from them. Mr. Potter. Thank you for meeting me. You said you had information, Bellatrix replied. Information that could help us. I do. Bones reached into her robes, pulled out a thick folder. I've been investigating Albus Dumbledore for 3 years. Ever since I started noticing inconsistencies. What kind of inconsistencies? Missing records. Sealed files. People who knew too much suddenly leaving the country or losing their memories. Bones's voice was flat. I'm the head of magical law enforcement, or I was, before Dumbledore had me suspended. I have access to information most people don't. And the more I looked, the more I found. She spread the contents of the folder across the table. Documents, photographs, transcripts of conversations that should have been private. Dumbledore knew about Harry's placement with the Dursleys, Bones said. Knew exactly how they treated him. He received regular reports from a contact in the neighborhood, a squib named Arabella Fig. Those reports described the abuse in detail. Dumbledore did nothing. Harry stared at the documents, feeling sick. He also knew about the blood wards, Bones continued. Knew they'd protect Harry from magical threats but not Muggle ones. He made a calculated decision that the protection was worth the cost. The cost being my suffering, Harry said quietly. Yes. I'm sorry. Bellatrix was reading the documents with increasing fury. Is this admissible? Can we use this against him? Not directly. Most of it was obtained through unofficial channels. But it confirms everything you've said about Dumbledore's manipulation. And combined with Harry's testimony, my testimony won't matter. I'm a child. They'll say I was influenced by Bellatrix. You're also the boy who lived. The most famous wizard in Britain. Bones leaned forward. People will listen to you, Harry. They might not believe you immediately, but they'll listen. And once the questions start being asked. Dumbledore's image cracks, Bellatrix finished. The grandfatherly protector revealed as a manipulator willing to sacrifice children for his plans. Exactly. Harry looked between the two women, one who'd been his hunter, one who'd been his savior. "Why are you helping us?" he asked Bones. "You were trying to arrest us a month ago." "Because I swore an oath to protect the innocent and uphold justice. Not Dumbledore's version of justice, real justice." Bones's jaw tightened. "When I learned what he'd done to you, what he'd allowed to be done, I realized I'd been serving the wrong master." "So you'll testify? Against Dumbledore?" "If it comes to that, yes. But I'm hoping we can handle this without a trial." Bones smiled grimly. "Dumbledore values his reputation above almost everything else. If we can threaten that reputation convincingly enough, he might be willing to negotiate." "Negotiate what?" "Your freedom. Your safety. And his retirement from public life." Bellatrix laughed. "You think Albus Dumbledore will retire quietly because we ask him to?" "I think Albus Dumbledore will do whatever necessary to protect his legacy. And if the alternative is public exposure of his crimes." Bones shrugged. "People will do surprising things when cornered." They spent the rest of the afternoon planning. Bones had contacts in the media, wizarding journalists who'd been suspicious of Dumbledore for years but never had enough evidence to publish. With her documents and Harry's testimony, they could build a case that would be impossible to ignore. "The trick is timing," Narcissa said, having joined them after the initial meeting. "If we move too soon, Dumbledore will discredit us before the story gains traction. Too late, and he'll have time to prepare counternarratives." "The Wizengamot meets in 2 weeks," Bones offered. "Full assembly. Every major player in magical Britain will be present. If we can present our evidence there." "We'd need an invitation," Bellatrix pointed out. "Fugitives don't generally get invited to government sessions." "I can arrange that. The Bones family still has some influence, even with me suspended." Amelia's smile was thin. "And I have a few favors to call in." "What about protection?" "Dumbledore will know we're coming. He'll have Aurors, Order members, who knows what else. I can provide some protection. Cole and his people can provide more." Narcissa glanced at Cole, who nodded. "We won't be going in defenseless." Harry listened to all of this, feeling slightly overwhelmed. 6 months ago, he'd been a cupboard-dwelling nobody, afraid of his own shadow. Now he was planning to confront the most powerful wizard in Britain in front of the entire magical government. "Are you all right?" Bellatrix asked quietly, noticing his expression. "Just processing. We don't have to do this. We could disappear instead, leave Britain, start over somewhere else. You don't have to face Dumbledore if you don't want to." Harry considered it. The idea of running away, of leaving all this danger behind and just living. It was tempting. But he thought about the other children Dumbledore might manipulate. The other necessary sacrifices he might make for his greater good. The other families torn apart by his machinations. "No," Harry said. "We face him. We stop him. We make sure he can't do this to anyone else." Bellatrix's smile was brilliant. "That's my little prince." The 2 weeks before the Wizengamot meeting were a blur of preparation. Harry practiced his testimony until he could recite it in his sleep. Bellatrix drilled him on likely questions, hostile interruptions, attempts to discredit him. They prepared for every scenario they could imagine and several they couldn't. Cole trained them both in combat tactics, not one-on-one dueling, but group fighting. How to protect each other in a hostile environment. How to create defensive perimeters. How to fight their way out if everything went wrong. "The Wizengamot chamber has 17 exits," he told them, spreading blueprints across the table. 3 main doors, for service entrances, 10 emergency portkey points. If we need to run, we have options. "We're not running," Bellatrix said firmly. "Plan for the worst, hope for the best. Basic strategy." Narcissa handled the political side, building alliances, calling in favors, preparing the ground for Harry's testimony. She was surprisingly good at it, Harry noticed. When she wasn't being terrified of her sister, she was actually quite formidable. "The Greengrasses will support us," she reported one evening. "So will the Patils and the Zabinis. Several other families are undecided but leaning our way." "And the opposition?" "The Weasleys are firmly in Dumbledore's camp. The Diggorys too. Most of the Light families will side with him out of habit, at least initially." "What about the neutrals?" "Watching and waiting. They'll swing whichever way the wind blows." Narcissa smiled. "Our job is to make sure the wind blows our way." The night before the confrontation, Harry couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, his mind racing through everything that could go wrong. Dumbledore was brilliant, powerful, experienced. He'd been playing political games since before Harry's parents were born. What chance did an 8-year-old have against him? A knock on the door. "Come in." Bellatrix entered, still fully dressed despite the late hour. "Can't sleep?" "No. You?" "I never sleep before battle. Too much energy." She sat on the edge of his bed. "Want to talk?" "I'm scared." "Good. Fear keeps you sharp." Bellatrix took his hand. "What specifically are you scared of?" "That I'll mess it up. That I'll say the wrong thing or freeze at the wrong moment and Dumbledore will win and everything we've done will be for nothing. Do you know what I was scared of, before I escaped Azkaban?" Harry shook his head. "Everything. The Dementors. The dark. The cold. My own mind, which was slowly breaking apart. I was scared every moment of every day for 12 years. Bellatrix's voice was quiet but steady. "And then I saw you. In those visions the Dementors gave me. And suddenly I wasn't scared anymore." "Why?" "Because I had something to fight for. Something more important than my fear." She squeezed his hand. "That's what you have, Harry. You're not fighting for yourself tomorrow. You're fighting for every child Dumbledore might hurt. Every family he might destroy. Every innocent person he might sacrifice for his greater good. You're fighting for them. That's a lot of pressure." "It is. But you're not carrying it alone." Bellatrix's eyes were fierce in the darkness. "I'll be right beside you tomorrow. I'll protect you with every spell I have, every breath in my body. Whatever happens, we face it together." Harry felt some of the fear recede, replaced by something warmer. "Bella?" "Yes. I love you." The words hung in the air between them. Harry had never said them before, had never had anyone to say them to. But they felt right. True. Bellatrix's eyes glistened. "I love you too, little prince. More than I ever loved the Dark Lord. More than I love myself. You're my family. My purpose. My everything." She leaned down, kissed his forehead. "Now try to sleep. Tomorrow, we change the world." The Wizengamot chamber was massive. Harry had never seen anything like it, tiered benches rising toward a domed ceiling painted with scenes of magical history. Hundreds of witches and wizards in formal robes, each representing one of the great families or institutions of magical Britain. And at the center, on a raised dais, sat the chief warlock. Albus Dumbledore. He looked exactly as Harry had imagined, long white beard, half-moon spectacles, twinkling blue eyes that seemed to see everything. He was smiling genially as the assembly settled into their seats, playing the role of benevolent leader to perfection. But Harry had learned to look beyond surfaces. And beneath the grandfatherly facade, he could see the steel. The calculation. The man who'd left a baby on a doorstep in the cold November night and called it necessary. "He's good," Bellatrix murmured beside him. "I'll give him that." "So are we." They were seated in the visitors' gallery, technically permitted to observe but not to speak unless called upon. That would change shortly. Amelia Bones had arranged for Harry to be given the floor as a matter of urgent public concern. The session opened with routine business, committee reports, budget allocations, a minor dispute between the Department of Mysteries and the Department of Magical Transportation. Harry barely listened, his eyes fixed on Dumbledore. Finally, after what felt like hours, Bones rose from her seat. "Chief Warlock, I move for a point of personal privilege." Dumbledore's eyes flickered to her, and something cold passed across his face. But his voice was warm when he responded. "Of course, Madam Bones. The floor recognizes the former head of the DMLE. I yield my time to a witness who wishes to address this body on a matter of critical importance." Bones turned and gestured to the visitors' gallery. "I call Harry Potter." The chamber exploded. Everyone was talking at once, shouting, "Really? Harry Potter? The boy who lived here? In the Wizengamot?" It was unprecedented. It was outrageous. It was, order. Dumbledore's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Order in the chamber. The noise subsided, though the tension remained. "This is highly irregular," Dumbledore said, his voice mild but his eyes hard. "Mr. Potter is a child. A child, moreover, who has been missing for nearly a year. A child who was kidnapped by an escaped convict. A child who wishes to speak," Harry said, standing. His voice didn't shake. He was surprised by that. "And I wasn't kidnapped. I was rescued." More uproar. More shouting. "Order." Dumbledore's wand cracked against the dais. "Mr. Potter, surely you understand. I understand that you left me with people who beat me, starved me, and locked me in a cupboard under the stairs." Harry's voice carried clearly through the chamber. "I understand that you knew about it and did nothing. I understand that you consider children like me acceptable losses in your plans for the greater good." Dead silence. Dumbledore's face had gone pale. "Those are serious accusations. They're serious crimes." Harry raised his wand, and documents flew from his pocket, spreading themselves in the air above the chamber for all to see. "Reports from Arabella Figg, your own agent, documenting my abuse. Correspondence between you and the Ministry acknowledging my living conditions. Records of your decisions to leave me there despite full knowledge of what was happening." The chamber erupted again, but differently this time. Shock rather than protest. Horror rather than outrage. This is preposterous," someone shouted. "Fabrications. The boy has been manipulated by Bellatrix Lestrange." "Then verify the documents," Harry responded calmly. "They're originals, not copies. Subject them to any authenticity test you want." Eyes turned to Dumbledore, waiting for him to deny everything. To explain. To make this all make sense. But Dumbledore said nothing. "Chief Warlock." A wizard Harry didn't recognize spoke up. "Do you deny these allegations?" Dumbledore's silence stretched for one heartbeat. 2. 3. "The decisions I made," he said finally, "were made in service of the greater good. The protection offered by Harry's blood relatives, protected me from magic," Harry cut in. "Not from fists. Not from starvation. Not from being treated like an animal for 7 years of my life. The wards didn't stop the Dursleys from hating me. From hurting me. From teaching me that I was worthless and unlovable." Harry's voice cracked, but he didn't stop. "You could have checked on me. You could have intervened. You could have found another way. But you didn't. Because my suffering was useful to you. That is not it is." Bellatrix stood now, her voice cutting through Dumbledore's protests. "I've seen his memories. Felt his pain. This child was tortured for years while the great Albus Dumbledore watched and did nothing. And for what? So he'd be grateful when you finally rescued him. So he'd be easier to control. You are a convicted criminal, Dumbledore snapped, his composure finally cracking. A murderer and torturer. Your testimony is worthless. Maybe. But theirs isn't. Bellatrix gestured to the gallery, where more people were standing. Amelia Bones. Narcissa Malfoy. Others Harry didn't recognize. We have witnesses. We have documents. We have truth. The chamber was in chaos now, wizards and witches shouting at each other, some defending Dumbledore, others demanding answers. But Harry could feel the tide turning. The seed of doubt had been planted. And then Dumbledore made his mistake. Enough. His voice boomed through the chamber, amplified by magic, silencing everyone. His wand was in his hand, and power crackled around him like lightning. I have dedicated my life to protecting this world. To fighting darkness. To ensuring that people like Bellatrix Lestrange and her master could never threaten innocent lives. And this is how I am repaid. With accusations. With slander. With a child being used as a weapon against me. He stepped down from the dais, approaching Harry directly. I don't know what she's done to you, my boy. What dark magic she's used to turn you against those who would help you. But I will not allow it to continue. His wand came up. And Harry's wand came up faster. Don't, Harry said quietly. Don't try to pretend you're protecting me. Not after everything you've done. Harry, my name is Harry Potter. And I am done being your pawn. Magic surged between them, Harry's raw power meeting Dumbledore's refined strength. The air crackled. The floor shook. And for one terrifying moment, Harry thought they were actually going to fight. Then Bellatrix was beside him, her wand trained on Dumbledore. Then Narcissa. Then Bones. Then Cole, who'd appeared from somewhere with a dozen armed guards. Then, slowly, other witches and wizards rose from their seats. Not many, maybe 24 out of hundreds. But they rose, wands drawn, standing against the chief warlock. Dumbledore looked around the chamber, calculating. His options were limited now. Fight and prove himself a tyrant. Submit and admit guilt. There was no good path forward. This isn't over, he said quietly. No, Harry agreed. But your control is. The world knows now, Dumbledore. Whatever happens next, they know. Dumbledore's eyes met his, and Harry saw something he'd never expected to see in the great wizard's gaze. Respect. And beneath it, grudging admiration. You've grown, my boy. More than I ever anticipated. No thanks to you. Perhaps. Dumbledore lowered his wand. But the game continues. Remember that. He turned and walked out of the chamber, his robes swirling behind him. Not defeated, Dumbledore was too powerful to be defeated by a single confrontation. But wounded. Exposed. Weakened. The chamber erupted again, but Harry barely heard it. He was shaking, the adrenaline finally catching up with him. He'd done it. He'd actually done it. He'd stood against the most powerful wizard in Britain and survived. Bellatrix's arm came around his shoulders, steadying him. Breathe, little prince. You did it. You were magnificent. Is it over? This battle is. The war continues. Bellatrix smiled, fierce and proud. But today. Today we won. The aftermath was chaos. The Daily Prophet ran competing headlines for weeks, some defending Dumbledore, others demanding investigation. The Wisingamot launched 3 separate inquiries. The Minister of Magic gave 17 different statements, each contradicting the last. But the truth was out. And truth, once released, couldn't be contained. Dumbledore stepped down as Chief Warlock for health reasons. He retained his position as Hogwarts headmaster, for now, but his influence over the ministry was effectively ended. His allies scrambled to distance themselves. His enemies circled like sharks. And Harry Potter became something he'd never expected to be, a symbol. Not of hope or light or the power of love, like the story said. But of resistance. Of a child who refused to be used. Of truth spoken to power regardless of consequences. He wasn't sure how he felt about that. "You look pensive," Bellatrix said, finding him on the roof of their cottage a week after the Wisengamot confrontation. "Good pensive or bad pensive?" "Just, thinking." Harry gazed out at the Irish countryside, green and peaceful in the summer sun. "Everything's different now. Everyone knows who I am. What happened to me? What Dumbledore did. Is that bad? I don't know. I didn't want to be famous. I just wanted to be safe." "You are safe." Bellatrix sat beside him. "Safer than you've ever been. Dumbledore's lost most of his power. The Ministry is too busy investigating him to hunt us. Even the remaining Death Eaters are keeping their heads down. For now. For now is all anyone has, little prince." Bellatrix put her arm around him. "The future is never certain. But the present? The present is ours." Harry leaned into her, feeling the familiar comfort of her presence. She was still terrifying, still dangerous, still capable of horrible things. But she was also his. His protector. His teacher. His family. "Bella." "Yes. Whatever happens next, we face it together, right? Always." Her arm tightened around him. "Together. Forever. Until the very end." Harry smiled, watching the sun set over the hills. He didn't know what the future held. Didn't know if Dumbledore would retaliate, if the Ministry would change their minds, if new threats would emerge from the shadows. The world was vast and dangerous and full of people who wanted to use him. But he wasn't alone anymore. He had Bellatrix. He had Narcissa and Cole. He had allies who'd stood with him when it mattered. He had family. And that, he was learning, was the most powerful magic of all. Chapter 3, The Reckoning. Harry's 9th birthday arrived with thunderstorms. Rain hammered the cottage windows, lightning cracked across the Irish sky, and Bellatrix stood at the stove attempting to make pancakes for the 3rd time that morning. The first batch had caught fire. The second batch had somehow transformed into something resembling charcoal. The third batch was currently smoking ominously. "Just let me do it," Harry said, trying not to laugh. "Absolutely not. It's your birthday. You don't cook on your birthday. I don't eat burned pancakes on my birthday either." Bellatrix glared at the pan like it had personally offended her. "I have dueled Aurors. I have escaped Azkaban. I have faced down the Wisengamot. I will not be defeated by breakfast food." The smoke alarm chose that moment to start shrieking. Harry dissolved into laughter while Bellatrix cursed creatively and tried to fan the smoke away with a tea towel. Cole walked in, took one look at the situation, and walked right back out. "Coward!" Bellatrix yelled after him. "Self-preservation," he called back. "I've seen what you do to eggs." 20 minutes later, they were eating toast. Just toast. Bellatrix had admitted defeat with extremely poor grace. "Next year," she muttered, "I'm hiring a house elf." "You said that last year." "This time I mean it." Harry grinned and bit into his toast. It was perfect. Everything was perfect. The cottage was warm despite the storm, filled with people who cared about him. Narcissa was reading by the fire. Cole was cleaning his weapons at the table. Bellatrix was scowling at the stove like she was planning its murder. This was family. Weird, dysfunctional, occasionally terrifying family. Harry wouldn't trade it for anything. The presents came after breakfast. More books from Bellatrix, because she remained convinced that knowledge was the greatest weapon. A set of throwing knives from Cole, because he remained convinced that backup weapons were essential. A beautiful cloak from Narcissa, lined with protective enchantments that had taken her 3 months to weave. And one final gift, wrapped in plain brown paper with no card. "What's this?" Harry asked, turning it over in his hands. "Open it and find out," Bellatrix said, her expression carefully neutral. Harry tore the paper away. Inside was a photograph in a simple frame. 2 people, waving at the camera, their faces bright with joy. A man with messy black hair and glasses. A woman with red hair and green eyes. His parents. "Where did you get this?" Harry's voice came out rough. "Narcissa found it. In the Ministry archives." Bellatrix's hand found his shoulder. "I thought you should have something of them. Something real." Harry stared at the photograph, watching his parents wave and smile and hold each other. He'd never seen them move before. Never seen the way his father looked at his mother, like she was the most precious thing in the world. Never seen the way his mother laughed, throwing her head back with pure joy. "Thank you," he whispered. "You're welcome, little prince." Harry set the photograph carefully on the mantel, where he could see it from anywhere in the room. His parents watched him with loving eyes, and for a moment, he could almost imagine they were really there. Almost. The storm cleared by afternoon, leaving the world washed clean and glittering. Harry practiced dueling with Cole in the yard while Bellatrix watched, offering occasional commentary that was mostly criticism. "Your footwork is sloppy. Your shield is too wide, you're wasting energy. Stop thinking so much and just react." Harry ignored her and focused on Cole, who was attacking with the kind of precision that came from decades of experience. The American wizard didn't hold back, never had, not since he'd started training Harry 6 months ago. Every session was brutal. Every session taught Harry something new. "Better," Cole admitted, deflecting Harry's latest volley of hexes. "You're learning to chain your spells. That's good. But you're still telegraphing. I can read your intentions before you cast." Cole lowered his wand. "Magic isn't just about power or technique. It's about deception. Making your opponent think you're going to do one thing while you do another. Like chess. Exactly like chess. And right now, you're playing with all your pieces visible." Harry frowned, considering. Bellatrix had taught him raw power and aggressive tactics. Cole was teaching him subtlety and strategy. Both were necessary. Both were exhausting. "Show me," he said. Cole smiled and raised his wand. What followed was a masterclass in misdirection. Cole's spells came from unexpected angles, preceded by feints that drew Harry's attention the wrong way. He moved like water, never where Harry expected, always one step ahead. Within 30 seconds, Harry was disarmed and on his back. "Ow," he said. "You'll learn." Cole offered him a hand up. "You've got talent, kid. More than most adults I've trained. But talent without craft is just potential. You need to develop craft. How long does that take?" "Years. Decades, maybe." Cole shrugged. "But you've got time. And you've got good teachers." Harry accepted the hand and stood, brushing dirt off his robes. Good teachers. That was true. Bellatrix for power and instinct. Cole for strategy and craft. Narcissa for politics and social maneuvering. Each of them had something to offer. Together, they were turning him into something formidable. That evening, an owl arrived. Harry recognized the seal immediately, the crest of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. Amelia Bones. "What does she want?" Bellatrix asked, watching Harry read the letter. "There's been a development. She wants to meet tomorrow. Urgent. It's always urgent with her." Bellatrix plucked the letter from Harry's hands, scanned it quickly. Her expression darkened. She mentions Rookwood. Harry's blood ran cold. Augustus Rookwood. Former Unspeakable. Death Eater. The man who'd been gathering Voldemort's scattered followers for months, planning something that no one fully understood. What about him? She doesn't say. Just that it's critical we meet. Bellatrix handed the letter back. Could be a trap. Bones hasn't betrayed us yet. There's always a first time. But they both knew they'd go. Bones had been their most valuable ally since the Wizengamot confrontation. Her intelligence had kept them one step ahead of their enemies for months. If she said something was urgent, it probably was. I'll come with you, Cole said from the doorway. Obviously. Bellatrix didn't look up. And Narcissa will stay here. If something goes wrong, someone needs to continue the work. Bella, Narcissa started. Non-negotiable, sissy. We can't risk everyone in one place. Narcissa looked like she wanted to argue but subsided. She'd learned over the past year that arguing with Bellatrix rarely accomplished anything. Tomorrow, then, Harry said. We find out what Rookwood is planning. And then we stop him. Bellatrix's smile was sharp. Whatever it takes. They met Bones at a safe house in London, a nondescript flat in a Muggle neighborhood that the Ministry didn't know about. Cole swept the building for wards and surveillance before letting anyone inside. Bones looked terrible. Dark circles under her eyes, hair escaping from its usual severe bun, robes wrinkled like she'd been wearing them for days. Thank you for coming, she said, gesturing them to seats around a scarred wooden table. I know this was short notice. What's happening? Bellatrix demanded. Bones spread documents across the table, intelligence reports, surveillance photographs, intercepted communications. Harry recognized some of the names. Not. Avery. Mulciber. The old Death Eater families, the ones who'd escaped prosecution after Voldemort's fall. Rookwood's been busy, Bones said. He's gathered nearly 30 former Death Eaters. They've been meeting in secret for months, planning something big. Planning what? A ritual. A resurrection ritual. Bones's voice was grim. They're trying to bring back Voldemort. The room went silent. Harry felt Bellatrix's hand find his shoulder, squeezing tight. Voldemort. The name she never spoke anymore. The master she'd once worshipped and now pretended had never existed. That's impossible, Bellatrix said flatly. The Dark Lord is dead. Destroyed. There's nothing left to resurrect. Is he? Bones pulled out another document. Our unspeakables have been analyzing the magical signature from the night Voldemort fell. They found something unexpected. Which is? A fragment. A piece of his soul, anchored to something in the physical world. They don't know what or where, but they're certain it exists. Harry's scar suddenly burned, hot and sharp. He pressed his hand against it, trying not to wince. Harry? Bellatrix's voice was sharp with concern. I'm fine. Just, my scar. Bones's eyes fixed on him with uncomfortable intensity. Your scar. The curse scar from Voldemort's killing curse. What about it? Bones hesitated. There's a theory. Among the unspeakables. That the scar isn't just a scar. That it might be, a connection. To whatever fragment of Voldemort survived. The room went very, very quiet. You think, Bellatrix said slowly, that Harry is somehow connected to the Dark Lord's soul? I think it's possible. And I think Rookwood thinks so too. Bones pushed another document across the table. This was intercepted last week. A communication between Rookwood and the Knots. Harry read the words with growing horror. The boy is the key. His blood, freely given or forcibly taken, combined with the Master's fragment, will provide the anchor for the ritual. We must acquire him before the autumn equinox. They want my blood, Harry said quietly. They want you, Bones corrected. Your blood, your connection to Voldemort, possibly your life. The ritual they're planning requires a living sacrifice. Then we protect him, Bellatrix said immediately. We hide, we run, running won't work. Bones's voice was tired. Rookwood has resources. Contacts. He'll find you eventually. The only way to stop this is to stop him. Permanently. You want us to attack him? I want us to attack him first. Before he can complete his preparations. Before he can gather more followers. Before he can find Harry. Bellatrix was silent for a long moment. Then, when? The autumn equinox is in 3 weeks. We need to move before then. Ideally within the week. That's not much time to plan an assault on 30 Death Eaters. No. It's not. Bones met Bellatrix's eyes. But it's all the time we have. They planned through the night. Cole brought in additional resources, mercenaries he trusted, former Aurors who'd turned freelance, a few of Narcissa's contacts who were willing to fight for the right price. By dawn, they had a force of 23 capable witches and wizards. Against 30 Death Eaters on home ground. We're still outnumbered, Harry pointed out. Numbers aren't everything, Cole said. We have surprise. We have intelligence they don't know we have. And we have you. Me. You're the boy who lived, kid. Half those Death Eaters are terrified of you on principle. The other half will be too focused on capturing you to fight effectively. Cole grinned. We're going to use that. You want me to be bait. I want you to be a distraction. Big difference. Bellatrix didn't look happy about this. If anything goes wrong, then I fight my way out. You've trained me for this, Bella. Let me use what you've taught me. You're 9 years old. I'm 9 years old and I've already faced down Dumbledore, Rodolphus Lestrange, and a dozen Aurors. I can handle this. Bellatrix stared at him, her expression complicated. Pride and fear and love all tangled together. Fine, she said finally. But you stay close to me. Always within sight. If things go bad, you run. No heroics. Same goes for you. Excuse me. No heroics, Harry repeated firmly. You're not sacrificing yourself for me, Bella. We both make it out, or neither of us does. Something soft flickered in Bellatrix's eyes. When did you get so stubborn? I learned from the best. Rookwood's headquarters was a manor house in Yorkshire, an old pureblood estate that had been abandoned for decades and recently reoccupied. The wards around it were formidable but not unbreakable. Cole had identified 3 weak points during his reconnaissance. They attacked at midnight. Harry was positioned with Bellatrix at the northern approach, waiting for Cole's signal. The night was cold and still, the manor house a dark shape against the stars. Remember the plan, Bellatrix whispered. I know the plan. Stay close to me. I know. And if you see Rookwood, don't engage alone. Find you first. I know, Bella. She squeezed his hand once, then released it as Cole's signal flared in the darkness, a burst of red sparks above the western approach. They moved. The first wave of defenders fell before they knew what was happening. Cole's mercenaries hit them from 3 directions simultaneously, overwhelming the sentries and breaching the outer wards. By the time the alarm was raised, Harry and Bellatrix were already inside. The manor was a maze of dark corridors and dusty rooms. Death Eaters rushed past them, heading toward the sounds of combat, paying no attention to the shadows where Harry and Bellatrix hid. This way, Bellatrix breathed, leading him deeper into the house. The ritual chamber will be in the basement. It always is. They descended a narrow staircase, the sounds of battle fading above them. The air grew colder. The walls were covered in symbols Harry didn't recognize, ancient runes, some of them pulsing with sickly green light. At the bottom of the stairs, they found the door. It was massive, iron-bound, carved with more of those disturbing symbols. And standing before it was Augustus Rookwood. He was older than Harry expected. Gray-haired, weathered, with deep-set eyes that glittered with intelligence. He didn't look surprised to see them. "Bellatrix," he said, almost pleasantly. "And the Potter boy. I was wondering when you'd arrive. You knew we were coming." Bellatrix's wand was up, her stance ready for combat. "Of course. Did you think your little spy network was actually secret?" Rookwood smiled. "I've known about Bones and her investigation for months. I simply didn't care. The ritual is nearly complete. Your interference changes nothing. The ritual requires Harry. And you're not getting him." "Oh, but I don't need him anymore." Rookwood's smile widened. "That was the original plan, yes. Use the boy's blood to anchor the ritual. But then we discovered something interesting." He gestured at the door behind him. "Would you like to see?" The door swung open. Beyond it was a vast chamber, lit by hundreds of floating candles. In the center stood an altar, covered in symbols that made Harry's eyes hurt to look at. And lying on the altar, a body. A twisted, barely human form, more snake than man. "We recovered him from Albania," Rookwood said, almost proudly. "What was left of him, anyway? The master has existed as a wraith for years, possessing animals, feeding on unicorn blood, waiting for an opportunity to return." "That's not possible," Bellatrix breathed. "And yet." Rookwood gestured again, and the form on the altar stirred. "He's weak, of course. Barely conscious. But the ritual will restore him. All it requires is a final sacrifice." "I thought you said you didn't need Harry." "I don't. I have something better." Rookwood's eyes glittered. "I have you, Bellatrix. His most devoted servant. Your blood, your magic, your life, all willingly given to restore the Dark Lord. What could be more fitting?" Bellatrix laughed. The sound echoed through the chamber, sharp and wild. "Willingly given. You think I would ever? I think you don't have a choice." Rookwood raised his wand, and the world exploded into chaos. The Death Eaters had been waiting in the shadows of the chamber, at least a dozen of them, hidden by concealment charms. They emerged at Rookwood's signal, surrounding Harry and Bellatrix in a ring of hostile wands. Harry's back found Bellatrix's, both of them turning to face the enemies on all sides. "Well," she murmured. "This is unfortunate. Can we fight our way out?" "Probably not." Her voice was steady despite the odds. "But we're going to try anyway." The first spell came from Rookwood himself, a dark curse that Bellatrix barely deflected. Then everything dissolved into chaos. Harry fought like Bellatrix had taught him, fast, aggressive, channeling his emotions into raw magical power. Death Eaters fell before his spells. But more kept coming, and the ring was tightening, and they were running out of room to maneuver. "Harry!" Bellatrix screamed. He turned just in time to see a curse streaking toward his chest. No time to dodge. No time to shield. He was going to. Bellatrix was there. She threw herself between Harry and the curse, taking it full in the chest. Her body convulsed. Her wand fell from nerveless fingers. She crumpled to the ground at Harry's feet. "No!" Harry's scream was raw, primal, tearing from the deepest part of him. His magic surged in response, not spells, not curses, but pure force. It exploded outward from him like a shockwave, throwing every Death Eater in the chamber against the walls. But Harry didn't care about them. He was on his knees beside Bellatrix, hands pressing against her chest, feeling for a heartbeat. There. Faint, irregular, but there. "Bella. Bella, stay with me. Stay with me." Her eyes fluttered open. Harry. You're going to be fine. I'll get you out of here. I'll stop him. Her voice was barely a whisper. Rookwood. Stop the ritual. Don't let him come back. I'm not leaving you. You have to. Her hand found his face, cold and trembling. I didn't break out of Azkaban just to watch you die, little prince. I didn't love you just to fail you at the end. You haven't failed me. You haven't. Then prove it. Stop him. Be the wizard I know you are. Harry looked at her, broken, bleeding, dying for him, and felt something shift inside him. Something that had been building for over a year, ever since a wild-haired woman pulled him from a cupboard and told him he was precious. She had given him everything. Her protection. Her knowledge. Her love. Now it was time to give something back. I love you, he said. Don't die. That's an order. Bellatrix's lips quirked. Since when do you give me orders? Since now. Stay alive. I'll be back. He stood, turned toward the altar where Rookwood was struggling to his feet, and raised his wand. Rookwood was powerful. Experienced. Decades older than Harry, with knowledge of dark magic that most wizards couldn't imagine. But Harry had something Rookwood didn't. He had rage. You hurt her, Harry said, advancing. You hurt her. She hurt herself. Jumping in front of curses isn't my fault. Rookwood raised his wand. And now you're going to join her. The master may not need your blood for the ritual, but he'll certainly appreciate a gift. Your master is a corpse on a table. He's not coming back. Oh, but he is. Rookwood smiled. The ritual is already in progress. That shockwave you released. It provided exactly the magical energy we needed. Even now, the Dark Lord is beginning to stir. Harry looked at the altar. The twisted form was moving. Arms reaching. Eyes opening, red, terrible, full of ancient malice. No, Harry breathed. Yes. Rookwood's smile was triumphant. Welcome back, my lord. Your servant has prepared a gift for you. The thing on the altar sat up. Its gaze found Harry, and a voice like death itself whispered through the chamber. Harry Potter. We meet again. Fear crashed over Harry like a wave. This was Voldemort. The monster who had killed his parents. The nightmare that had haunted the wizarding world for decades. He was weak, barely formed, but his power was already radiating through the chamber like heat from a furnace. You've grown, Voldemort observed. His voice was stronger now, fed by the ritual energy. And you've been busy. I've watched, you know. Through our connection. Seen everything you've done. Our connection. The scar, foolish boy. Voldemort's lipless mouth curved into something like a smile. My mark upon you. A piece of my very soul, bound to yours when I tried to kill you. You've carried me with you all these years. And now. He reached out a skeletal hand. Now you'll help me return to full power. Whether you want to or not. Harry felt something pull at him. Something deep inside, beyond thought, beyond will. The scar on his forehead burned like fire. His legs moved of their own accord, carrying him toward the altar. No. No. He fought the compulsion with everything he had. Thought of Bellatrix, bleeding on the floor behind him. Thought of his parents, murdered by this creature. Thought of everyone who would suffer if Voldemort returned. Interesting, Voldemort murmured. You resist. That's new. I'm not, your puppet. Everyone is my puppet, boy. Some simply haven't realized it yet. The pull intensified. Harry's feet scraped across the floor. His wand arm rose without his consent, pointing at his own chest. Kill yourself, Voldemort whispered. Release your magic, your life force, into the ritual. Complete my resurrection. Harry's wand trembled. His finger touched the trigger point for a killing curse. One word. One moment of weakness. And everything Bellatrix had fought for would be lost. No. He thought of her face. Her fierce smile. Her wild laugh. The way she looked at him like he was the most precious thing in the world. She believed in him. She'd given everything for him. He would not fail her. I am Harry Potter, he said through gritted teeth. I am not your servant. I am not your weapon. And I will not let you win. He turned the wand on Voldemort instead. Magic poured out of Harry like he'd never experienced before. Not spells. Not curses. Something older. Something primal. The same power that had destroyed Voldemort when he was a baby, the power that had protected him for years without his knowledge. Love. He thought of Bellatrix, who'd broken out of prison just to save him. Of his parents, who'd died to give him a chance. Of everyone who'd ever cared about him, believed in him, fought for him. The power crystallized into light, golden, warm, blazing like the sun. It struck Voldemort full force. The Dark Lord screamed. His barely formed body began to dissolve, overwhelmed by magic it couldn't comprehend, couldn't counter. Impossible. Voldemort shrieked. This power, this magic, this is love, Harry said. The power you never understood. The power that beat you before. The power that's beating you now. The light intensified. Voldemort's scream became a howl, became silence. His body crumbled to ash. His presence in Harry's mind, the constant pressure he'd never noticed until it was gone, vanished. And in Harry's scar, something else burned away. The fragment. The piece of Voldemort's soul that had been lodged there since infancy. It dissolved in the golden light, destroyed by the same love that had saved Harry's life 9 years ago. When it was over, Harry collapsed to his knees, completely drained. The chamber was silent. Rookwood was staring at the empty altar, his face slack with disbelief. The surviving Death Eaters were frozen, watching their master's ashes settle across the floor. He's gone, Harry said quietly. For good this time. Then he turned, crawled back to Bellatrix, and gathered her in his arms. Cole found them 10 minutes later. The battle above had been won. Narcissa's reinforcements had arrived at the critical moment, overwhelming the remaining Death Eaters. Rookwood and his followers were being rounded up for ministry custody. But none of that mattered to Harry. All that mattered was Bellatrix, unconscious in his arms, her breathing shallow but steady. She needs a healer, Harry said. Now. Cole took one look at her and summoned his emergency portkey. They landed at St. Mungo's, and Harry refused to leave her side as the healers worked. He held her hand through the treatments, the spells, the potions. He was there when she opened her eyes. Harry. I'm here. I'm right here. The ritual stopped. Voldemort's gone. For real this time. Bellatrix stared at him. You destroyed him. I had help. Harry's smile was exhausted. You taught me well. I taught you to fight. Not to. She trailed off, searching for words. What did you do? I loved you. And apparently, that's the most powerful magic in the world. Bellatrix laughed, then winced as her injuries protested. That's disgustingly sentimental. I learned from the best. She squeezed his hand weakly. I'm proud of you, little prince. More proud than I've ever been of anything. I know. Harry leaned down, pressed his forehead to hers. Rest now. I'll be here when you wake up. Promise? Promise. Recovery took weeks. Bellatrix's injuries had been severe, the curse that hit her had been dark magic of the worst kind, designed to cause maximum suffering. Only the rapid treatment at St. Mungo's had saved her life. But she was strong. Stubborn. And she had something to live for. By the autumn equinox, the date Rookwood had planned for Voldemort's resurrection, Bellatrix was on her feet again. Weak, but improving. The healers said full recovery would take months. Bellatrix told them she'd be fine in weeks. She was right. "You're pushing too hard," Harry told her, watching her practice simple spells in their cottage garden. "I'm pushing exactly hard enough." Bellatrix's lumos flickered, then steadied. "I refuse to be an invalid." "You're not an invalid. You're recovering from nearly dying." "Same thing, in my book." Harry sighed but didn't argue. He'd learned that arguing with Bellatrix about her own health was pointless. She'd push herself regardless. At least he could be there to catch her when she fell. The wizarding world, meanwhile, was in chaos. Voldemort's final death, confirmed by multiple sources, had sent shockwaves through magical society. The Daily Prophet ran headlines for weeks. The Ministry launched investigations. Dumbledore, who had predicted Voldemort would return, someday, was forced to acknowledge that the threat was finally over. Harry found himself at the center of everything. "They want to give you an Order of Merlin," Narcissa reported one evening. "First class." The Wisengamot voted unanimously. "I don't want a medal." "I know. But refusing it outright will create more problems than accepting it gracefully." Harry sighed. "Fine. But I'm not giving a speech." "You're definitely giving a speech. I hate you. You love me and you know it." She wasn't wrong. The ceremony was held at the Ministry, in the same chamber where Harry had confronted Dumbledore a year ago. He stood at the podium, looking out at hundreds of witches and wizards who had gathered to celebrate his heroism. He felt like a fraud. "I didn't do this alone," he said, abandoning the prepared speech Narcissa had written for him. "I couldn't have done any of this alone. A year ago, I was a scared kid in a cupboard, waiting to be hurt. I thought I was worthless. I thought no one would ever care about me." His eyes found Bellatrix in the crowd. She was sitting with Narcissa and Cole, her expression fierce with pride. "Then someone saved me. Someone who everyone said was evil, dangerous, irredeemable. She broke out of prison, the worst prison in the world, just to rescue a kid she'd never met. She taught me magic. Taught me to fight. Taught me that I was worth fighting for." The crowd was absolutely silent. "This medal should go to her. Bellatrix Lestrange. The woman who taught the boy who lived that he was actually worth living." Harry lifted the medal from his chest. "I accept this honor on behalf of her, and everyone else who risked their lives to stop Voldemort's return. Thank you." He walked off the stage before anyone could react. The aftermath of his speech was predictable chaos. Half the wizarding world was outraged that he'd praised Bellatrix. The other half was moved by his loyalty. The newspapers couldn't decide whether to call him a hero or a dark wizard in training. Harry didn't care about any of it. He was home, in the cottage in Ireland, surrounded by the people who mattered. The controversy would fade. The attention would die down. And he would be left with what really mattered. Family. "That was quite a speech," Bellatrix said, finding him on the roof that evening. "You caused quite a scandal. You're worth it." Flatterer. But she was smiling. "Come inside. Narcissa made dinner, and for once, it's actually edible. In a minute." She sat beside him, and they watched the sun set over the hills. The sky was painted in shades of orange and gold, and the air smelled of autumn and possibility. "What happens now?" Harry asked. "Whatever we want." Bellatrix's hand found his. "The war is over. Voldemort's dead. Dumbledore's sidelined. We're free, little prince. Really, truly free. It doesn't feel real. Give it time." We've been fighting so long, it'll take a while to remember how to live. She squeezed his hand. But we have time now. All the time in the world. Harry leaned against her, feeling the familiar comfort of her presence. She was still terrifying. Still dangerous. Still capable of horrible things if anyone threatened him. But she was also his. His protector. His teacher. His mother in all the ways that mattered. And for the first time in his life, Harry Potter felt truly safe. 2 years later, a letter arrived. Harry was 11 now, tall for his age, confident in a way he'd never been before. His magic had grown powerful enough to challenge adult wizards. His knowledge of both light and dark arts was extensive. And his family had expanded to include not just Bellatrix and Narcissa and Cole, but a network of allies and friends across the wizarding world. He was ready for the next step. The letter bore the Hogwarts crest. Inside was an invitation to attend the most famous magical school in Britain, signed by the headmaster himself. Dumbledore, Bellatrix said, reading over his shoulder. Interesting. He's still headmaster. For now. But he's lost most of his power. The Board of Governors watches his every move. She handed the letter back. The question is, do you want to go? Harry considered it. Hogwarts. The castle he'd heard about in stories. The place where his parents had met, had fallen in love, had become the people who died to save him. There was history there. There were answers there. And there was Dumbledore, who had manipulated him, betrayed him, tried to shape him into a weapon. Yes, Harry said. I want to go. Then you'll go. Bellatrix's expression was complicated. But I'm coming with you. What? Not to Hogwarts. But nearby. Close enough to reach you if anything goes wrong. Her smile was fierce. You're my little prince. I'm not letting you out of my sight that easily. Harry laughed. You're ridiculous. I'm your mother. It's the same thing. The word hung in the air between them. Mother. She'd never called herself that before. But it was true. In every way that mattered, she was his mother, the woman who'd saved him, raised him, loved him unconditionally. Yeah, Harry said softly. I guess it is. The morning of September 1st dawned clear and bright. Harry stood on platform 9 3/4, trunk packed, owl caged, wand holstered. Around him, families were saying goodbye to their children, the platform crowded with excitement and nervous energy. Bellatrix stood beside him, drawing stares from everyone who recognized her. She'd been officially pardoned 6 months ago, a political necessity, given her role in destroying Voldemort, but she was still Bellatrix Lestrange. Still terrifying. Still infamous. Write every week, she said. I will. Use the emergency port key if anything goes wrong. I will. Don't let Dumbledore manipulate you. Bella. Harry took her hands. I've got this. You trained me for this. Trust me. She stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she smiled. When did you grow up, little prince? Somewhere between escaping Azkaban and destroying Voldemort, probably. Brat. But her eyes were shining. Go. Make me proud. I already have, haven't I? Every day. From the moment I found you. Harry hugged her, fierce, tight, full of love that words couldn't capture. When he pulled back, he was smiling. I'll see you soon. You'd better. He grabbed his trunk, his owl, and walked toward the train. At the door, he looked back one last time. Bellatrix was still standing there, watching him go, her expression a complicated mix of pride and sorrow and love. He raised his hand in farewell. She raised hers in return. And Harry Potter, the boy who lived, the boy who'd been saved by the most unlikely person imaginable, stepped onto the Hogwarts Express and into his future. The train compartment was empty when Harry found it. He stowed his trunk, settled his owl by the window, and was about to sit down when a voice came from the corridor. "Mind if I join you? Everywhere else is full." Harry looked up. A boy his age with red hair and freckles stood in the doorway, looking nervous. "Sure," Harry said. "Come in." "Thanks." The boy dropped onto the opposite seat. "I'm Ron. Ron Weasley. Harry Potter." Ron's eyes went wide. "Blimey. You're really, I mean, everyone knows who you are, but, just Harry," he said firmly. "I'm just Harry." Ron studied him for a moment. Then his face relaxed into a grin. "All right, just Harry. Want some chocolate frogs? My mum packed loads." Harry smiled. This felt normal. Easy. Just two kids, starting a new adventure. "Yeah," he said. "That sounds great." Outside the window, the platform was shrinking into the distance. Somewhere out there, Bellatrix was watching, probably already planning her surveillance strategy for Hogsmeade. But that was for later. Right now, Harry was exactly where he was supposed to be. With new friends, new possibilities, and a whole world of magic waiting to be discovered. The Dark Mother's little prince was going to Hogwarts. And nothing would ever be the same. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.